I will now call to order the regular meeting of the council for today, October 16th at 7 p.m. It is now 7 p.m. A quorum is present. The meeting is duly constituted, and I'll ask for a motion to adopt the agenda. And a second. Any discussion? Peter, you usually have something to add here.
So we have an on-table item that relates to a couple of on-table items. The first relates to a filming application.
This was circulated earlier today. That is item 8A8. 8A8. So we will add that there, filming application. And then there's a continuation of correspondence, 11B.
Yeah, 11B is continuous correspondence with Mr. Broughton and yourself. And 11C would be a correspondence that was received on the same subject matter from Louis Peterson.
Okay, these were after the cutoff for the agenda, but for the sake of completeness, you're bringing them here on table?
Yeah, I thought it would be best to deal with subject matter since it's already in the correspondence for this meeting, so at your council's pleasure.
Okay, fine. So I know the council has seen these two items of correspondence. Are we sufficiently up to speed on the filming application to add it to the agenda, it having only been sent out at 3 o'clock this afternoon? We can debate it. Whether we debate it one way or another remains to be seen, of course. Okay, so I see nods. So we're good on that?
Yeah.
Okay, any further adds, subtracts?
No, not from me.
Okay,
I've
Fred.
got one for under council. I think it's a little reports, but it's not quite. I'll show you can determine whether it should go there or not.
Yeah, that's
8C?
probably, yep.
can we know what it is?
It's a secret.
So
Well, then it'll have to be closed.
no, it's not. It doesn't meet the requirements for closed meeting. It'll be a
corporate
verbal report from
Verbal
Councillor
report,
Bain.
see, Councillor B,
Yeah.
8C1, yeah. Verbal Bain.
And with council's permission, the CAO might say something too.
I don't know how you're going to fit that into the agenda, but it'll be backwards.
What was the item called?
Verbal Bain.
Google report from Council. Thank you.
I'm only going because the corporate officer said it's okay. Okay, so those are about the final agenda adds, subtracts. Motions on the table, all in favor? One so far, two. In favor of the agenda. And opposed, that carries. And now we go to public participation. Thank you. We have a lot of speakers. 1 through 4, and then no number 5, and then a number 6, 7, 8, and 9. 2 minutes each. We have the timer.
Okay.
2 minutes each. Any topic. While we're waiting, and before the start of this agenda item, perhaps I'll take the opportunity with the public here, including my family, for the first time in 4 years. Thanks for coming. To say just how much of an honour it's been to serve with my fellow colleagues on council. It hasn't all been a bed of roses for a variety of reasons. Some structural, some administrative, some legal. The blasted community charter, but it has been fun, and I thank you for my part in it, and I thank the public as well. And with that, perhaps we'll move on to public participation.
Before we do that, with respect to public participation, I think council needs to consider an amendment or a dispensation with respect to the normal rules pertaining to public participation, which is a maximum of 10 minutes, i.e. 5 times 2. But we've got actually eight speakers on this list. And I don't know that first come, first serve is necessarily an appropriate
No,
democratic
I don't think we've
principle.
ever restricted anybody's right to speak, so I'll ask for a motion in that regard. Second, any discussion? All in favour? Opposed and carried. And so we will move to the first on the list. Carol Connor,
Thank you.
welcome.
I have two questions. The first question is for Mayor-elect McLaughlin, who is not here, but I need the paper copy for all of you. Will he take his oath of office and abide by it? And second, will the council members see that the law, the improvement and good government of the village is carried out as per sections 218 of the Local Government Act and 116 of the Community Charter concerning council matters, and speak up? I ask these two questions after hearing the recorded minutes and reading the draft minutes of the October 2nd meeting. A question raised from the public gallery, not by a member of council, caused the council to recess, revisit, and rescind the motion that was voted on by McLaughlin, Bain, and Burr. Councillors Bain and McLaughlin for sure knew of the conflict. McLaughlin's participation thus far has influenced any further revisiting of this motion by council. McLaughlin has a personal relationship with the architect, and he also happens to be a client of his wife, hence a pecuniary interest. This was disclosed by the former mayor, Broughton, in the Global News, and there's a link here to the video link, and I sent that to council. More than $193,000 was paid by the village council to the architect to design a building the residents could not afford and would not approve borrowing for. How much more money will these two council members, McLaughlin and Bain, and the architect cost the village residents if council fails to uphold the oath of office? And I'm going to have to leave. It's not a reflection on council, it's just I have a dog out of surgery.
That's fine, thanks. I can just address one thing. I don't know if you've seen the agenda for this meeting.
I can listen to them.
Fine, so I'd strongly recommend you do that. Thank you, Carol. Okay, thanks. So next on the list is Jamie Cunliffe.
I'm just gonna ask if these gentlemen here could go first, because I would like to speak to their point, if that's okay.
That's fine. We don't have any precedents, so
And the same with James Wall behind.
okay, very good. So I have on under the heading film, which is I assume what you mean, Dominic Main.
Yes, that's me.
Welcome.
I just came out to address everybody here. I'm part of the production company that is applying to film in your area. And this is Jacob, who's been polling in the area. And I'm just here to answer any questions, concerns that everybody has in regards to polling. We do this in a lot of neighborhoods, and I know you guys do have a 100% polling policy, which is something that I do totally respect. And most of the municipalities we work in, we work on a 90% policy for approval for a permit. Myself personally, I do like the polling process because it gives us a chance to get to know the community, the neighborhood, and address anybody's concerns, which I have to honestly say, I've been doing this for 15 years, and I've never ever done a poll under 90%, and never not addressed anybody's concerns. So I just wanted to let everybody know that I'm here representing the application for the film.
Okay, thank you. I will just to manage expectations. Council only received even an inclination that there was a film permit request in play at 3 o'clock this afternoon. It's a fairly voluminous package. It's been added to the agenda. There will be debate on it. That comes much later. I wouldn't suggest that anybody, unless they need to catch up on some sleep in the meantime, stay then. Give us an understanding of when you need to know by.
Well, for us, the sooner the better.
Give me a date.
The dates, I have to get my dates. Do you have the letter there?
Yes, I do.
If I may, the filming is scheduled to take place October 25th, so there's no scheduled council meeting prior to the commencement of filming.
Okay,
Let
so
alone
yeah, the CEO was
preparations
just
or
pointing out
even
the answer is
soon.
academic.
Yeah,
Because
so
there's no council
they-
meeting between then and now.
Yeah, they want to start prepping on October the 23rd and actually have the film, there's 4 film days in question.
Okay,
So they want to, the first one coming up is to prep October 23rd, 24th. And then they would Those are the film days, aren't they, Jacob?
Okay, well, we don't have time to debate the matter now.
I don't wish that, I can pull out my calendar right here.
It doesn't matter, as I say, it's academic. There's no council meeting between now and then.
Okay.
So the decision has to be made tonight, and we have a lot to review. So we're going to be debating almost blind. It would have been very nice to get this a lot sooner. But thanks for that. Anything for Mr. Main? Council? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We next have John Price.
I'm part of that.
Okay, so you're all under the same umbrella, and Jacob Roberts, the same.
Yes, also.
So no need to.
You want to comment on your polling? that
Sure.
you've done?
You can stand there.
You can just stand here.
I've been in your neighborhood polling today, and I was also here earlier meeting some of the residents. So far, I've found almost entirely support for our project. Few residents have expressed some concerns, which we are currently addressing. None of them spoke out against this, except for one particular resident.
Thanks. Just on the fly, I'm looking at your report, unpage numbered, and I see 1, 2, 3, 4 ticks saying support
Yes.
out of 10 on the list.
Those are houses where the resident wasn't home or out of town.
So no support.
They're not against it, they're not for it. I haven't had a chance to speak to them yet.
Yeah, exactly.
I
But
will
we need
continue
support.
polling and trying to contact those people.
Okay, and then I see a second list
Mhm.
that I'm not going to try and interpret on the fly.
It's the same list, it's from the next street over.
Oh, I see it. Okay, fine. So you actually, so more of these people were home,
Yeah.
all but 3, in fact, and those 3 all supported. Okay, thanks. Anything else on the polling process for now? No. Okay, good. Thanks. We'll move on then to Jamie Cunliffe.
I just wanted to say that I feel that I think film is a good opportunity for the village. I'm managing the inconvenience that it causes to neighbors, but it looks like a good possibility for a revenue stream for the village. And I also feel that the 100% polling is out of line with what is kind of current and what goes on. I lived in Gastown for years, and there was filming all the time, and everyone was compensated for it. I was a member of a co-op. We actually had a board member whose chief role was to be the film liaison person, to try to generate revenue for our buildings through that. So I just would like to say that I live in Kelvin Grove, where it will be done, not directly on the same street, one up. So I wasn't told, but I would have definitely been in favor.
Okay, thanks. Just please remind us, Peter, what sort of revenue, or Pam, actually, probably more a question for you. What sort of gross revenue are we talking about here over the course of the 6, 7, 8 days of the project?
In terms of this, I think we'd estimate it to be about $5,000 for the village.
$5,000. Residents don't see any piece of that.
The residents in whose house are filming, they have separate.
Yeah, but that's a
negotiations
private
with it,
arrangement
yeah.
that they have with the film company. Sure, this is for the public, the use of public space. $5,000.
Plus, we would not be party to any information as to whether or not neighbors asked for some compensation directly from the film company. That would be between the neighbors and the film company.
Okay. Well, we have a filming policy here at SITS. It's a little old-fashioned. It's one of the things the council didn't get to put its hand to this time around. I've lived in LA where there was permanent filming, and I got quite tired of people with clipboards telling me I couldn't enter my house.
Oh, I understand that.
So
Sure.
I'm somewhat on the other side of the equation. But council will debate this thing later. Thanks, Jamie. James Mole? Sorry?
Mole, yeah.
Sorry, beg your pardon.
I'm 25 Sweetwater, just above the filming, and I support the filming. There, I believe, is one individual standout that's not supporting that, and I think he's being more or less adverse to anything happening outside his house by anyone for the last several years. I believe that the film company perhaps should compensate this gentleman and put him in a hotel for the week if he is not willing to listen to noise outside his house.
But for the village to lose out in the revenue stream $5,000 for the sake of one person who is curmudgeonly, doesn't strike me as in the best interest of the community.
Okay, thanks for your input.
Thank you.
And Michael Broughton, welcome.
Great. I'm here speaking as a former member of the Highway Advisory Group. I was together with Jim and quite a number of other citizens in the village. We spent, we were involved in the Highway Advisory Group for the Smooth Sky Upgrade, and we worked very closely with the Ministry of Highways for almost a decade, spending literally thousands of hours researching, requesting accurate data, and negotiating for the benefit of the citizens of Lions Bay. We also felt a real responsibility to people who were inviting on the highway from all over the world. I'm here actually to speak regarding the village update October the 5th, where there was information regarding the potential increase of the speed limit from 60 to 70 in the village. And while it doesn't seem like a major issue, I know the council has received quite a lot of information from several different individuals regarding concerns raised by that speed increase.
Speed limit increase.
Sorry?
Speed limit increase.
Speed limit increase, right. And I certainly applaud council for the creativity in terms of looking at solutions to try to deal with the speeding that's happening. And, you know, taking on sort of a counterintuitive approach, I think is very innovative, and I certainly support that. But unfortunately, I think there's a number of issues that you either were not aware of or maybe haven't given the weight that I would hope that you would. Because I believe that there's a very clear understanding with the Ministry of Highways that the 60 miles per hour, 60 kilometer per hour speed limit is part of a very carefully negotiated sound mitigation strategy. And we spent hundreds of hours on sound and the impact of sound. And the fact that so if I could have just a
Sure, if you take some time to wrap up.
Another minute, that would be very, very helpful. Okay, anyway, my concern is that there's a lot of data that perhaps you haven't considered. I believe it's been provided to you now. And based on that information, I just feel it's very important that you hold on any decision to move forward with the 70 kilometer per hour increase. I think it could put the village at some jeopardy because there is an obligation on the part of the Ministry of Highways to maintain sound levels to the best of their ability, and there's some lawful words in there and so on. But my concern would be if the Village Institute initiates an increase in the speed limit, that the villagers, the residents who have been promised a sound level, if that's not achieved, that the village would then potentially be liable. And I think that we might be inadvertently handing off a responsibility that the Ministry of Highways currently exists to monitor and maintain sound levels as best we can. And I think if the village initiates a speed increase, they can then say, well, you know, we've changed the package and you know, we no longer are obligated to do our best efforts. And there's all sorts of words like best efforts and so on. There's a lot of data involved here, and so I certainly can't cover it off in 2 minutes. But it is in the letters that have come from former Mayor Broughton, from Louis Peterson, and from myself. And I don't know if you've received other letters as well. But I'm certain that Jim could update you as well on some of the concerns that are in those letters anyway. So I would very strongly encourage you to not support proceeding with the speed limit change. And again, I would like to reiterate that I strongly support your initiative in trying to address the problem. And I think it's you know, but I think that there are some issues that are raised that could be more problematic. Sometimes the solution's worse than the problem, and And as a citizen of the village, if I see somebody stepping into a minefield, I kind of feel the obligation to yell, watch out. Okay?
Okay, thank you very much. I can perhaps just interject some commentary there. Appreciate your concern. If there's data available, I certainly haven't seen it. The correspondence we received is not data in terms of noise levels. Just for public edification, speed limit and speed are two very different things in Lions Bay. As we know, the speed limit currently is 60 kilometers an hour. The speed, depending on where you are between the two boundaries of Lions Bay, is 90 to 100. So the speed limit is somewhat irrelevant. And the thinking here was to see what would happen if we raised it to 70. Would people believe it more and, in fact, counterintuitive, as you refer, slow down? So I know it may come as a bit of a fait accompli to you, but it has actually been discussed in various village updates and certainly in council minutes since the very first time it was mooted more than 3 years ago, and certainly since council endorsed removal of the 60 in favour of 70 all the way through the village in October last year, more than a year ago. The move is going ahead. It's been approved by the safety board of the Ministry of Transport. It has been signed off by the chief engineer. That process itself took something like 10 months. It is going ahead. And so there's no decision to be made. The decision has been made. This council won't reconsider it. Future councils may. And I look forward to seeing whatever it is that they decide. But I would hope that they would give this opportunity a chance. Trumping even sound is safety. And our accident rates are twice the highway average, and our fatalities are 3 times. People are driving too fast through Lions Bay. Got nothing to do with the speed limit. They're ignoring the speed limit. What it is the design of the highway. It looks like a freeway, and they're doing freeway speeds. So we have a far bigger problem than just noise. Of course, one of the main reasons internally that we want to change the speed limit, I said the wrong thing myself, is to address noise. The noise is too high. What we have today isn't working either. Sound walls, 60 kilometer limits, not working. It's too loud, especially motorbikes. So with that, thank you for your input there. That was a little more than 2 minutes, but probably worth spending. And finally on the list, Neville Abbott. Good to go? Yep. Sure? Just in case anybody doesn't know, 2 future council members are sitting there. It's very good of them to come. We're in a slightly unique situation in Lions Bay in that we already know who our council members are because they were all acclaimed. They didn't actually have to go through the election, which is next Saturday. Suckers. Okay, with that, public participation is over. Is it hot in here or is it hot in here?
It's hot here.
It's hot.
Too hot.
If only we had air conditioning in this place. Thanks for coming. My loves.
Thank you. I've got a meeting upstairs.
Okay, cheers. Thank you. This is now when people want to make their escape, this would be a good time to do it. On the other hand, if you want to stay, you're very welcome.
I'm supposed to be checking it.
Yeah.
Two rows.
Oh, is it? Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's better, right? Cheers. Thank you. Okay, moving on. We will go to item number 4 on the agenda. There's no public delegations, and so we'll move to review and approval of the minutes of 2 council meetings, the first being the special council meeting of June 9th. Those minutes are found on page 5 of the package.
2015.
2015. Now, yes, thank you. I reviewed these and I thought I remember reading these before. So either I was reading the agenda package or we've done this already. If we approve it twice, it's no big deal, right? Yeah, okay. That was my only question / comment. This was a very limited, this was before your time, Peter.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just some housekeeping to appoint officers. So as I say, I believe that we've approved this already, but I'll ask for a motion to approve it again or for the first time, depending. Thanks, and a second. Any discussion? All in favour? Opposed and carried. And same again for the meeting of October 2nd, the last one. I didn't have anything. Item 13 is accurate, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, motion to approve these guys. And a second. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favour? Opposed and carried. And business arising from the minutes. Wait, I'm looking at the wrong thing.
So, with respect to business arising, I've been requested to read a statement into the record from Councillor McLaughlin. So I'll do that now.
Thank you.
At the last meeting of council, sorry, let me start again. At the last meeting of council on October 2nd, 2018, I inadvertently failed to declare a conflict of interest with respect to the proposal from Millennia Architecture for various parking lot and street layout work, despite having previously dealt with a conflict regarding this firm due to my wife providing accounting services for the firm. I apologize for putting council in an awkward position and will be sure not to let it happen again. That's Councillor McLaughlin's statement. I have a statement of my own I'd like to make, and that is that I too apologize because as the corporate officer I ought to have recognized that the matter, that there was an issue regarding the matter, and should not have allowed it to come forward on a council meeting night when there was only 3 councillors, one of whom had an issue. So I apologize to council for that, and we'll endeavour to do better in that regard in the future. There is some corrective action required because of the procedural irregularities with respect to the motions pertaining to adopting the recommendation regarding the proposal from Millennia Architecture, as well as the resolution near the end of the meeting that Councillor McLaughlin, I should not have allowed Councillor McLaughlin to take part in rescinding the earlier resolution adopting the proposal. So under section 131 of the Community Charter and section 35 of Procedure Bylaw 476, the council can reconsider, Mayor Burr can require the council to reconsider and vote again on resolutions from the October 2nd regular council meeting. And at this point, I would hand things over to you, Mayor Burr.
Okay, thank you. I will say that I don't believe necessarily that apologies are necessary. It was well before your time. I didn't certainly twig that we were talking about the same people, but be that as it may, it's what happened. I suppose council will accept both of those statements. Do you need a resolution in that regard? Or just
No.
the fact that they were spoken in the meeting, we'll include them in the minutes and we'll go from there. Okay, thanks. So, as advised by the corporate officer, pursuant to section 131 of the Community Charter and section 35 of our own procedure bylaw, which is number 476, as amended, I'll require that council reconsider and vote again on the following resolutions from the October 2nd regular council meeting. Firstly, item 13, which you may want to refresh your memory, is there in the minutes, and that is on page 12, 13, 14 of the package. So we're reconsidering this resolution, which at the time was carried, and the resolution was to the effect at the meeting that item 8A1 was to be rescinded. That was the award of a contract to Millennia Architecture. So I will move that resolution specifically regarding the item at 8A1 that took place in item number 13 of the meeting of October 2nd, 2018 be rescinded. Can I have a second? Thanks, it's been seconded. Discussion.
So my only comment here is that if you vote in favor, then there will be no opportunity to reconsider the adoption of the proposal. If you vote against this motion, then the rescission of the adoption at the last meeting will not take place, and then you will be free to reconsider the adoption of the proposal afresh.
Okay, so just to clarify, just to make absolutely sure we're all on the same page there, we are reconsidering the original motion, not considering quashing the resolution that was made.
Right.
So the original motion was to rescind. We're now reconsidering that motion.
And you have a motion and a second.
It's been moved and seconded. It's on the table. Any further discussion? Remember, if we want to reconsider the original resolution that was rescinded previously, we would vote in opposition to this motion. And if we are fine with it as it is, we would leave it as it is by voting in favor.
Sounds like we're being asked to go backwards through the
Just, yeah.
Yeah,
Kinda
something
walking
like that.
backwards in
Their
time,
eyes closed.
Step by step.
We are voting on we are reconsidering the original motion. That's the thing that you have to remember. We're not considering rescinding the rescission.
Okay, so here we are at point A. We want to get to point B, which possibly would be that
Let's not presuppose what council's going to say on this motion, but if it did vote no, then we would be free to reconsider the motion. If the chair of the meeting, that's me, so moves. Which I'll tell you a secret, I will move that,
thank you.
assuming this motion fails.
I like plain English much better.
Told you it was confusing. I'll call the question. All in favor and opposed?
Opposed?
You have to be opposed, otherwise you're in favor. So it's universally quashed. I think that's first.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever all voted against the motion.
Actually, you did.
Oh.
Last meeting, I think.
I think then...
Again, it was a procedural issue, so,
That's right.
yeah.
What is this corporate officer up to? Okay. And then I'm going to just so happen to make another motion. Would you like to know what it is?
Can't imagine.
Tell me.
I would move that the proposal of Millennium Architecture Corporation, dated August 30th, 2018, this is reconsideration of a motion that was done before, but it's starting again. We're considering it now afresh in matters arising from the minutes. I'm reminding myself, not more than anybody. Be approved to be undertaken in the following ordinance, subject to the following conditions: A, sea and lot layout; B, sunset lot layout; and C, municipal precinct layout, up to but not including any survey work, pending cost estimates for such survey work, and sufficient budget to proceed. And that the CEO have been authorized to sign the accepted proposal on behalf of the municipality. That's my motion. Would somebody care to second that one? It's been seconded. Discussion.
And if anybody needs to refresh their memory or refer to the substance and merit of the matter, it's at page 17 of the agenda package.
Yeah. Which is the same one that we saw in the corresponding item before. So is everybody ready for the question? Okay, so this is a reconsideration of the original award of the contract with a quorum present, no conflicts declared. All in favor?
The recommendation comes from staff.
This is staff's recommendation.
Yeah, okay.
It's the
actually,
same as the
yes.
recommendation before, yeah, and the recommendation is to proceed as moved.
Staff's recommendation came after pursuing as many options as possible through potential consultants.
Yeah, you guys weren't here, so this was a result of a
No,
clean tender.
We've read through it.
Yeah, it was tendered. This is the result.
It wasn't tendered, it was staff sought.
Oh, that's right,
Quotes.
because it's below a certain level of purchasing policy. Thanks. Okay, any more discussion regarding? Ready for the question?
Yep.
All in favour? Opposed and carried. Okay. That was quite fun, actually. Okay. I had to wait till my last meeting for that to happen. Do I get my signed copy of Robert's Rules of Orders now?
Autograph by me.
Kind of late in the day.
Not by Roberts, no, he's long dead. Okay, unfinished business. We'll work through these carefully. I know that nothing's happened on 3256. Tell us, Peter.
56. No, I've been sort of back and forth with staff at District of West Vancouver, and hope to advance this file very soon.
Okay, this is not an unimportant one, and there is a drop dead date. It's later in December, but yeah, so for future council members and for the public, this is to do with bylaw adjudication, which had previously been provided to the North Shore municipalities by the city of North Van. They've given up that happy duty, and now nobody knows what they're going to do. So the remaining municipalities are going to have to decide what they are going to do. North Van City having taken it into within their own arms, but only for them. Correct?
Yeah, District of North Van and District of West Van are both reviewing their options and the potential for taking over the service.
Yeah. And Bowen will follow in. Or is Bowen a member of the same thing?
Yeah, Bowen is a member, and I'm not sure if Bowen will, in fact, renew, but we'll see.
And for all I know, Anmore and Belcarra too? Port Moody?
Nope.
Okay, so there's lots of
This is
options.
Squamish is the only other.
Oh, Squamish is
in
part
this,
of it?
yeah.
Okay. Okay, so there's lots of options, but we can't let it die on the vine. Okay, so I know you're going to be surprised to hear this, but I haven't done 58 yet. I will before the end of the term. 59?
No, I haven't.
Okay, you will.
Yes, I
and
will.
60
It's done.
has done. So we can strike one off the list there, Shauna, and that's number 60. We'll now move to reports. The first being a staff report on traffic and parking layouts, starting on page 17.
Already been dealt with.
Fine, thank you. So anybody want to review this report anymore? It's on the current agenda, so I'll ask for a motion to receive the report. And second, any discussion? All in favour, opposed and carried. And second report is from the CFO, the request for decision on the MFA equipment financing opportunity. So on page 21. Pam.
Yes, so at the July 26th meeting, council awarded the contract for the purchase of the Public Works truck to Damas Ford, and the intention was we would obtain financing for that through MFA financing. So this is somewhat of a formality. It's a requirement to have a council resolution in order for me to get the MFA financing. The current rate for the MFA financing is 2.41%, and it will be a 5-year loan. We have a similar loan for our backhoe. And we want to authorize up to 390. At this point, I don't think I'll need the 390. It's coming in at about 385. We're just finalizing the final purchase price and some of the additions to the trucks. The difference between the authorization of the 410, that would include a GST and PST, and when I get the loan, I don't need to get a loan for the GST portion, which is about $18,000, because we get that back. That's purely just a cash flow. So I'm requesting that council authorize up to $390,000 to be borrowed for the purchase of the trucks.
Okay, thank you, Pam. So I'll make the motion that council authorizes up to $390,000 to be borrowed under section 175 of the Community Charter from the MFA for the purpose of purchasing 5 public works trucks, and that the loan be repaid within 5 years with no rights of renewal. Can I have a second discussion? What does rights of renewal mean?
It means we can't renew it. We have to pay it off within the 5 years.
But we would have anyway. It's 5-year amort, and
It is, but if we had decided partway through, we'd have to go to the public for any loan over 5 years, so that's one of the reasons. But I think it's a bit of a formality, but they're being very clear there's no rights of renewal. If halfway through we decide, no, we'd like a longer term, we can't do that. We have to pay it back within 5 years.
we'd have to take a new loan and go to the public if it was longer than 5 years for that one.
That's correct.
This is a standard
It's a
wording
pretty
from
standard
MFA.
wording. It is, but for the equipment financing, it's a standard wording. We can pay it off early if we choose, with no penalty, but
Okay, so there's no debate on whether we need the trucks or not. That's already been decided. This is the formality that the MFA needs to see the resolution. So any further discussion? We're ready then? All in favour? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Pam. And you're up next for the information report. That's the disbursements for the quarter on page 23.
yes.
Do we want to, is everybody warm enough now?
No?
Oh, okay.
Cool enough, you mean?
Yeah,
Well, I mean, it's now just comfortable.
okay.
We can maybe adjust the temperature by adjusting the door angle. Okay, let's move on. This is
Yes,
the
it's-
third quarter.
Yeah, it comes every quarter. It's basically all the disbursements we made with the exception of payroll.
Well, I had multiple, but I just would like to make absolutely sure for the record. We see multiple checks here to Broughton and Broughton Inc. Can you please just remind us and by proxy the public what that's about?
Broughton & Broughton is the entity that owns the store. Although it was sold, the name stayed the same. So Broughton & Broughton is the cafe purchases, essentially. We have an account there. We make small purchases. And
So
then we
that's
get a
the
bill
legal
from
name
them.
of the cafe.
Exactly.
Thank you. So I'll restrict myself to just a few, if I may. The first is the confined space entry program. I presume that means training. I see we've paid 2 checks to these people, totaling $12,000.
It wasn't the program, that was the WCB requirement. We came to council for that because it hadn't been budgeted. We were required in order for our employees to go into confined spaces, work CPC mandated that we had procedures. So we actually hired someone to write the procedures and all of our standards. That's been ongoing for...
So it is a
at least
program,
6
it wasn't
months.
just
It's
a training.
program. No, it's not training at all. It was necessary because they were basically saying our employees could no longer go into confined spaces until we had a policy and
Got
a
it.
program written around that.
And we approved $12,000 for that?
It's a bit more than that. I think it was closer to 20. It's been going on since probably the spring, I think.
Mhm.
And they've
6
been
months or so.
6 months or so.
Okay, well,
So
we
it's
can't know
pretty much
everything at the
done now.
beginning, at the budget time, so that came up after budget
Yeah,
time. That's
and we did
understandable.
we did get council approval for that
Yeah,
resolution.
and we had no choice in that one.
No, it wasn't. I mean, we
And we have
basically couldn't
confined
continue.
spaces, and we have to go into
Everywhere.
them, so.
Everywhere.
It's good business to be in, the confined space program business. Okay. Light fixture repair, CLAT, $4,897.
Yes, that was a replacement actually of the lights in the clat, the same way we had to replace the lights
Oh, all of them?
here because they
Not just
had,
one?
Oh no, it was all of the
It said
lights
lights
in the clat.
fixture.
Oh, S, we missed the S, or maybe it got cut off, got truncated when we printed. It was replacing all the lights in the
$5
clat
grand,
because
all the
they
lights?
had, the
PCB ballast?
in them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
$1,063 for a lawnmower?
It's a lawnmower repair, wasn't it?
It says lawnmower. Well,
Sorry.
I hope we didn't spend $1,000 to repair it, because you can buy 4 for that money.
It was a ride lawnmower, it's the full.
Oh, then it
ride
must be
on
repair.
lawnmower. Yeah.
Okay. Lawnmower. I'm only going by what it says here. Lawnmower.
We limited how many letters we have for the descriptions.
Well, let's say lawnmower repair next time. I'm sure we could fit in there. And then I ran out of steam. Anything else, Council? I didn't run out of steam. Nothing else bothered me.
One question I've got on page 27. I'm not sure I understand it. It's Protect Vehicle Systems.
Hmm.
There's no invoice, no description. It's got 3150. Yes. What does that mean?
Sorry, I don't have my reading glasses. Which was it? Protect.
Item number
Yes.
809.
6 on the bottom side.
Oh, the yes means voided. That check was voided.
Oh, okay.
That was why. And the reason it was voided, it was made out to the wrong. We'd sent a Protec and a Protel, and it was just, we just caught it that we picked the wrong vendor, so we just canceled the check. Should have gone to Protec Alarms, which is the alarm system we had for our bylaw officers.
This, the very next one, the Peak News Magazine. Have we? I know we don't have a formal policy as yet, as to where we do our public notices, but we pick and choose between the Peak and the North Shore News, depending, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Future council may want to consider. I mean, if we're actually serious about providing public notice, we probably want to put it in vehicles that the public reads, to the extent that they read print news media anymore. But that's what the community charter requirement is. It's got to go into a newspaper, whatever that is. Whether the peak is adequate effort, I don't know. But that's for future councils to decide. Anything else, guys? Pam, anything you want to point out that
No, just,
we would
no,
have
just
wished we
that
had seen before?
The $500,000 payment, but that was for school tax. I wasn't sure if anyone would catch that.
That's
That was our school tax.
the only
payment.
thing is you did put school tax in.
Yeah, I know. I had a bet with Haley. We're going to comment on the school tax. We couldn't.
I mean, I
change
saw it. Yeah, it's not school tax, it's general revenue.
Okay.
It doesn't go anywhere near schools. And I hope the minister is listening. Because she knows I don't like that subterfuge. Okay, anything else? So the motion is to receive the report. It's been moved. Second. Thanks, Jim. Any further? All in favour? Opposed and carried. Okay. Office Coordinator. House Sound Marine Reference Guide, page 33. There's a recommendation. Shauna.
It's more or less a formality. When we did this almost a year ago, there was two choices, and when we actually did the resolution, we kind of combined both.
Yep.
And because of that, we actually can't now make the payment because they're actually quite strict about having the resolution before we make the payment. So it's rescinding the prior resolution and then requesting council choose the level.
I actually went back to look at the report on this one and listened to the tape. As I had understood it, it was that whatever it turned out to be, A or B, we were authorizing staff to pay that one.
Mhm.
But you're saying that's not adequate.
No, it's council that determines whether to
To do
choose
A or B.
A or B.
A or B.
I
And
think-
most municipalities have done, or jurisdictions have done A.
Yeah, which is the higher one.
Yeah, and so the choice is council's to choose and whether to go with the amount stipulated under their report for A or B, or
The 1,000 or
stick
500,
with your rounding up version.
So just to remind us, we rounded it up the last time to 1,500. This is the mechanism that you feel will do this best, rescinding the previous res and doing a new one? You don't want to just amend the previous one?
Well, if you want to, that's option 3, is amend
Yeah.
the previous resolution.
Just by striking
to
option.
striking one or the other.
Yeah.
And then if you want to leave the amount rounded up or not, would be whether or not you
Well, the
make it
previous
further.
res was the rounded up amount.
Yeah, so all you would be doing is, if you want to leave it as a rounded up amount, then you would simply strike A or B.
Yeah. So I think that's quicker, unless there's no motion on the table yet, but I'm just looking for nods around the table on whether we want to keep the rounded up amount. So it would be 1,000 as opposed to 631.
It's not the, I believe the choice is 631.76 or 293.71.
Or option
Not
3
1,000.
is,
Well, there's a past resolution, and that is to pay 1,000 or
I think
500.
that was an option. We said 1,000 and they wanted A or B.
They refused extra
Just
money.
don't have to come back again.
We can do it this way.
631.76 or 293.71 is what they're asking. Is my understanding.
that's what they want.
I've had a few
one or the
conversations
other.
with them. Yeah.
Okay, I haven't had
They
those
don't want the extra money?
conversations. I think they want everybody to pay. But if people don't all pay under A, then they're going to be short. If some people pay under B, I don't know. It just seems odd, but
We're going with your recommendation. You want us to rescind the previous res?
Or if you do change the wording, just don't say 1,000. Say 631.76
Well, that'd have the same
or
effect.
293.71.
So,
Well, we could amend the previous res.
so now you're confusing me, because I read this thing, went through the explanation of how the amounts were arrived at, some of that. I looked at it and I said, that one makes sense, based on Lions Bay.
which one makes sense?
The A,
The higher one.
yeah,
For 693.
Yeah, the only
Yeah.
difference between the two scenarios is including just the part of West Van that's on House
No, I
Sound, which is not a
understand
very
that.
big piece,
Yeah.
or the whole of West Van,
Yeah.
which of course is the tail that wags the dog.
yeah. I looked at that too. They took 9,000 residents.
Yeah. Yeah, the rest is the same. Boy, did we go through this.
And I
right.
figured that West Van is a lot larger than that.
Yeah. So, and West Van feels that they're always left holding the baby. So
Yeah.
I guess they can choose the lower one, which is A.
Yeah.
Right?
B.
No, B,
B.
sorry. The higher divisor. Yeah.
So it's going to be
So what do you? So your recommendation is to rescind the previous res and make a new one in those funky amounts, choosing A or B.
Yes.
Okay, let's do it that way then. So can I have a motion to rescind the previous resolution, which was the one passed on November 7th, 2017, moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favour? Opposed and carried. And now, I'll make the motion that I won't read the preamble because that's already been done, but it's the one starting, whereas the Ocean Watch Task Force now, therefore, the Council of Lions Bay resolves to support such recommendations to make a proportional contribution to the House-owned Marine Reference Guide as outlined in Scenario A, that is $631.76 Canadian per year for 3 years. I've moved it. Anybody want to second that one? It's been seconded. Any discussion on this? Other than the fact that it's crazy they wouldn't take 1,000. But all right, saves us some money.
Well, if they don't want it, they don't want it, I guess, but.
Well, certainly when I told the forum at the last time I was there, which was 2 months ago, they were very pleased that we rounded it up. Everybody did. But fine. Not going to beat this horse to death. It's already dead. Ready for the question? Jim, you looked like you were...
Yeah.
No? Good?
Yeah.
All in favour? Opposed? And carried. Okay. Those of you patiently waiting, it's coming. In fact, with Council's unanimous consent, we can move item 8, which is the film application, up to now. It's just another report, but it does require unanimous consent for after the fact change to the agenda. I'll make a motion to that effect. Would anybody like to second it? It's been seconded. Any discussion? We needed unanimous on this one. All in favour? Opposed and carried. Okay, guys, you're up. Well, we're going to consider the report now, right? So, listen up. Peter.
So, basically what we have is an application for filming for the dates of October 25 to 31. The locations are 185 Tidewater and 89 Tidewater, with equipment being shared between those two locations as per the maps that are part of the application materials. So if you look at those maps, actually,
There was 1 or 2 copies floating around.
so on the map for 89 Tidewater, you'll see that at the very end of the driveway, there's a long driveway just below the highway that goes up to the house. And that's where the generator would be, represented by the starburst or the electrical lightning bolt.
We have a 100 kilowatt generator if you need one.
And so that's away from any other residences. And then with respect to the location at 185 Tidewater, you can see that some trucks would be parked at the Kelvin Grove Beach Park parking lot, and some in the cul-de-sac next to 185. The generator is located as close to 185 as possible. And what else?
Circus Crew Tent, Crew Park, TBD. Where is the TBD?
So as I understand it, circus means trucks and tents?
Well, that's the circuit, which is all the major trucks and all the crew. We're looking into the Brunswick pit right now to park everything up there to keep it at a minimum down within the Lions Bay site itself.
Okay, normally we're not shuffling papers like this, but as I pointed out before, the adoption of this item, we haven't seen it. I haven't seen it at all. Obviously, I didn't check my email at the right time.
So what would be required for this would be, because of the hours, some of the filming would take place between the hours of 7 p.m. and 2 a.m. I should say p.m. So the noise bylaw would have to be exempted, or relevant portions of the noise bylaw.
How, from what time to what time are the generators? The noise is in respect of the generators?
I think the noise could be in respect of any number of things. There would be, I believe there's a scene where a vehicle leaves. There's also some fireworks involved. Those are more accurately set out. Sorry. I'm just looking for the...
Starting at 7 p.m., 5 to 6 takes no more than 15 second bursts. That's,
Yeah,
the
right.
fireworks are much of an issue.
That's on page, from the polling notice list. And that would take place on the 23rd and the 30th, I believe. Same thing on the 30th, fireworks be set off the lowest level of the property, pointed towards the water for ignition. Filming would require 5 to 6 takes of no more than 15 second burst. So yeah, trucks and generators and...
Can I
but
ask
I
a
think-
question? So if you're doing fireworks, is there any fire mitigation measures on site?
So, as I understand it, please correct me if I'm wrong, but there'll be a pyrotechnic.
It's from a professional
certified?
firework company, and they have their pyrotechnic license.
And I believe that in such a
But
case...
will there be fire mitigation measures on site?
Yeah, we always have, the special effects guys always have water standby fire extinguishers, and our group, locations always travels around with 5 or 6 fire extinguishers wherever we go.
And I believe that we require, in the use of pyrotechnics, our fire department must be on standby. There, in other words, which costs money, obviously. I think fire rescue service is 100 per hour.
The fire chief was notified.
Okay, so
and
it's up to him to
in the fire
determine.
bylaw, pyrotechnics associated with movies are not classed as fireworks, which are normally
Subject to
prohibited
approval.
under the
But it's
fire
his
bylaw.
discretion whether he wants to be there or not. I believe.
I'm not 100% on
Well, I
that.
mean, the cost is nominal, so.
I haven't had a chance to speak with him about this.
Okay, so the letter that went out states a variety of things, some presupposing the conclusion and others not. So the curfew hours are 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. surely, for curfew.
So where are you reading curfew?
Fifth, sixth line down in the letter. Filming, polling notice. What it doesn't say is when the noise will happen.
Yeah, that's backwards.
Yeah, okay. I see a time here, 2 a.m. is the latest we will be leaving, which means that people don't get sleep for 6 days.
Can I address that in a
Yeah, typically in a larger municipality, as you know, you wouldn't be allowed, but this is not a
Yeah.
large municipality, so go
That's why
ahead.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah, yeah, please go ahead.
We do blanket that. The normal filming shooting crew, they work on a 12-hour basis. And because as the week progresses when we film, their call times change. So we do blanket it for a larger, to encompass a just-in-case measure. And a lot of times, they might be starting at 10 and they'd be finished by 11, 12, and we were not required to go to 2 a.m. But because we cannot foresee, problems that arise that the actors don't know their parts, or they don't know what they're saying, and the day before we run later, then the next day the call time's later. So what we're trying to do is encompass a way to cover all that, so we don't have to keep changing everything. A lot of times, we will be finishing by 11, 12. And what we call those tailgates, that all the equipment's back on the trucks, and the tailgates are closed, we walk away, we're quiet. And so it doesn't necessarily have to go to 2 a.m. every night, but we're ensuring that if there does come up a situation that it does, that we do have it covered within the letter.
Okay, thanks. So, I mean, I think it all really comes down to the neighborhood support letters. So it has been determined that Tidewater and Sweetwater is the neighborhood. I suppose that's fair. And it is largely supportive. What does the policy say? If you don't hear from somebody, is that too bad? I went asking for them at 10 o'clock in the morning when they were all at work and they weren't there, so
I think,
are we supposed to have positive affirmation or
no, I think
just,
it's
I see there's a
lack-
first attempt, second attempt, a third attempt.
I think it's reasonable attempts and lack of objection is essentially what it comes down to.
Are there public notices up saying proposed filming taking place here? Let us know if you don't like that idea. It may not be in the policy. This policy is antiquated.
Mm.
If I could speak to that, I've left
Sure.
letters on, at every single house in that.
So you left letters?
Yes.
And how
If
would
I
they
can
send them back?
I'm sorry?
How do they send them back?
I dropped them off in their mailboxes if I didn't get a chance to.
Well, there are no
actually-
mailboxes.
I put them on the door.
And Jacob, he's in charge, a normal polling process for us takes 5 days. A lot of municipalities want up to 5 visits. I've always been under the intention that we need to have contact with everybody, so I do go overboard. We do 5, 6 visits at different times during the day, just to make sure that we do get in contact with everybody that is gonna be impacted by any filming.
So it's your intention to poll everybody?
Yes.
One way or the other?
One way or the other, except for I have to put in the caveat that if somebody does not want to speak to us, we will do our best to communicate with them, because Jacob did run into one person today that refused to give his name and did not want to address this whatsoever.
That's a legitimate attempt, and you would so note that?
Oh, yes, and every comment, Jacob's job is basically to poll. It's not to get a yes, it's not to get a no, it's to get the individual's opinion of the poll, of the request, and to record everything.
Okay, so we don't have those yet, so how does council know? So council is being asked to approve a film permit, but that's not council's purview, that's a staff purview.
Yeah, but it's subject to
You're asking for a waiver on the noise bylaw.
waiver of the noise bylaw, and council has to deal with the fact that we have a policy that says it has to be 100%. It can't be, there can't be any objectors, obviously. As the policy now stands, one person could
Stymie the whole thing.
Stymie the whole thing. So council has to decide whether or not the policy will be abrogated in this circumstance.
Where does it say
or
that,
not.
Peter?
The policy, in the
Yeah.
policy?
Page 4 of the policy. "100% approval of all residents directly impacted must be obtained in order for either multi-day parking permits to issue or any relaxation of the noise bylaw." So on what basis would we rescind the policy?
Well, let's go back for a second here. If we're talking about 100% not affected or 100% happy with the decision to go ahead, my question is, we're talking about 2 streets in Lions Bay on Tidewater and Sweetwater.
Mhm.
Well, what about the people above them on the other side of the highway?
I don't know if directly impacted is
Well,
defined.
directly impacted, if there's noise or loud, if there's fireworks or any of that kind of stuff going on, they're gonna be affected by it too. So are we not polling more residents than just those 2 streets?
Residents will be polled by the village office on receipt of an application.
No.
Polling shall not take place prior to an application. I mean, this is
The
2009 policy. It's
The
10
village
years.
office never polls.
Okay, so that part of the
That-
policy
that-
is not being adhered to.
No, the filming companies always do the polling, as I understand it. The fireworks, as I understand, if you turned around, Councillor Hughes, and looked at the map there,
Yeah.
would be below, basically where the lease in the water looks like, around there. So it'd be and aimed out towards the water.
Yeah,
So
fine. Yeah.
is there? I don't know if there's an indication in the materials as to how high in the sky the fireworks will be going.
They're talking about 200 feet, but we're getting the entire report by the end of the week, which will have all the specs on it. And in regards to polling a larger area, I would welcome polling a larger area. I have no qualms about having Jacob work a few more days. If you guys want us to go across the highway and talk to all those residents, we would welcome that as well.
I guess the problem with that would be the council has no opportunity to come back and revisit.
Well, let's just
what-
make sure we understand,
what feedback we
because the
get.
filming application is approved by staff against the policy, and there's no provision for council to do that. So in order to approve any filming, especially there, because we know that certain residents, and we know this from historical results, certain residents, even one resident, would be opposed. That
It
would,
is opposed. Council has received direct emails from that resident.
that's true. That should, simply because it didn't arrive in time for the cutoff, but we can mention that resident Kambisa Zodigan has stated opposition to the application. So according to the strict terms of the policy, that's it. So what you're asking for is to approve it anyway, irrespective of the policy.
Well, that would be council's determination as to whether or not the policy is to be amended on a one-off or not. And until such time as a policy is revisited. Otherwise, if council's not prepared to consider abrogating the policy, then it's the end of the story.
I want to clarify a little bit. I think in this case, this is just me, 100% approval. If they do the polling right, that goes back to a lot of municipalities use 90% as opposed to 100%, okay? That allows for, there's gonna be the odd person in every pile of people that's gonna go against the crowd no matter what, okay? So, I'm not saying that if we have one person, all I'm saying is that staff have made a decision that we need to move forward. To come into council and ask us to accept this and set aside what we normally do, is that right?
Staff has received a last-minute request
Okay,
before you now,
yeah,
because we cannot make a decision saying, yes, you can do this filming, because we have to abide by a policy which is currently in play, not amended, and it says gotta have 100%.
okay.
Because it does not have 100%, staff is not in any position to accept the policy or
Accept the application.
not accept the
Yes.
application.
The question
Sorry,
is the village open for business on filming or not?
That's right.
that's
That's the
council
question.
to
But that's the
determine.
question. And
It
with
is a
100%,
it is a
you're basically
question,
saying
definitely.
it's not open for business.
Well, there's so many, I mean, as I mentioned at the beginning when we adopted this item, there's so many issues with this policy. I actually proposed quite a lot of changes to it, which just never went anywhere. Some of them were, for example, you can have one film. Let's just remind ourselves that the filming itself takes place on private property. We're talking about parking and noise. That's all, and tents and stuff. And it's it's not egregious, it's the wrong word. It's intrusive. It's a lot. It's 60, 70 people running around, all with cars and whatnot. So my proposition had always been to say you can have one a year, and it's going to cost you. Meaning there needs to be compensation for some defined impacted people. $5,000 for 6-7 days of disruption is laughably low. It needs to be 10 times that. But that policy never saw the light of day. I don't want to be making policy on the fly at the table, having seen this thing for the first time an hour ago. I'd be prepared, because I know a lot of work has gone into this, to consider a special meeting if the rest of you would. So we could even consider rewriting. It's not rocket science, and it doesn't require a Rhodes Scholar to rewrite this filming policy. As I say, I've already done it.
As I understand, there was a committee that looked at that filming policy for a year and came up with a recommendation for a policy that this council, in the early days of this council, decided to reject.
Yeah.
So, I don't
That
know,
was-
I'm not familiar with what that policy looks like.
I can
That was-
remind council on that one. That was essentially authorized a free-for-all. with no reward for the village whatsoever. It was essentially, if you wanted to film, go ahead. And the reasons given were, it's so good for Lions Bay's businesses. It's really important for Lions Bay's image. There were all kinds of reasons given, none of which I bought into. And so council at the time, this was 4 years ago, rejected it. I'm prepared to revisit it, but the only thing that's speaking to me in favor of this thing right now is there's only one rejection. According to the policy in play, which we have no basis to mess with on the fly, that kills it. We've heard from several members of the public saying that they support it, but they could just as well have done this. What do we want to do? Because just to remind you, and I just for the record state that staff make no decisions, not overtly anyway. It's us that have to make this decision. It's going to go down, when people realize what's involved, noise, 6 days of disruption, lots of trucks. It's all very sexy the first time. As I mentioned, it's not very sexy the 300th time. And then the 300th time somebody with a clipboard told me I wasn't allowed to go through my own front door. I said goodbye and went through my front door. I'm on film as doing so. Can't remember the name of the production. So what do we want to do? Because we're being asked to abrogate, amend on the fly, change, ignore the policy, and waive provisions of the noise bylaw, and that's it.
I got a couple of problems with it, plus another recommendation. But like, first of all, the area is RS1 zoned, and a film group comes in, it's a commercial activity. So the peace and quiet of the residential zone is gone. And I sympathize with some of the people who are up in arms against it, because this isn't the first time filming has been done at that same house. And it grows old pretty quickly for a lot of the residents. There's some of them don't want to have anything to do with any film company, so you probably aren't going to get any response from them. Some people think it's a neat idea, they want to see it. Well, we got a mixed feeling here, so it's pretty hard to justify changing the city policy when there is opposition to it.
Well, there's no opposition but one.
Yeah.
Everything else that I see here is a tick in the support column.
Mm-hmm.
And that carries a lot of weight.
But the other issue,
admittedly, there's several missing.
the other issue I find is I don't think you make good policy under the gun of time. And I think getting it at the last minute is not the time to do it. We can't get adequate feedback from the community as to what they like or what they are going to put up with. And we may agree with something, and if it goes sideways, guess who gets the blame for it? Well, the village does.
Well, actually, council does.
But
even worse.
I just think to ask for such a big reversal on the standing policy is just ambitious with just a couple of weeks to go. I mean, these things take time to work through. And I think there should be more forethought, and if a plan was there, give us a few months' notice so we can examine the thing rather than make a decision on the fly.
When were you guys scouting these locations?
About 2 weeks ago. The production that we're working on, we're only, they go into production, they have 3 weeks prep. So a lot of these smaller shows, not the big features, the ones that would have the larger impact, they have up to 3 months prep time. The smaller shows in the TV series, they have TV series work on what they call a 7 to 7. So they have 7 days to prepare for each episode. Movies of the week that we're doing, we have a 15-day shoot, and we have approximately 3 weeks to prepare for that 15-day shoot. So we don't have the luxury of having the 3 months because it is a smaller production. And that's why we are a smaller footprint than the features and then the TV series.
Well, you may consider it a small footprint, but 50 to 60 people running about, that's 10% of the population of Lions Bay. My math is not exact there, but yeah. I would certainly like to accommodate you at a price, and the price ain't 5,000. But we've got some policy considerations to look at before we can do that, and I don't think we're in a position to do that now. Would we be willing to hold a special meeting to consider this? in about a week's time.
Logistically, is that gonna work?
Well,
'Cause they're
yeah,
gonna have to-
it's also the point, isn't it? Just remind us of the dates.
It's coming up we want to start prepping on the 23rd.
Today being the 12th,
16?
16th. So there's no time at all.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's two ways to look at it. One is amending the policy, which is what it sounds like you're talking about doing,
Well, it's not a new one,
versus
actually, but-
versus basically accepting a one-off abrogation of the policy. The two different things. The one-off wouldn't necessarily require a thorough examination of all of the different aspects that one would want to consider if one's going to talk about amending the policy.
Exactly.
And I don't know that, a week from now, we're going to be in any better position with respect to having, all of the necessary considerations that one ought to weigh and consider.
Even a
for
week's not enough.
a new policy.
And a week is
That's-
too long for these guys. So it would be more than a one-off, it'd be a two-off. One of those would be to waive the 100% approval required, and the second would be to the fee schedule.
Well, somebody mentioned it, I forget who it was, somebody mentioned that if you could make a deal for the objector, that move them out of their house, put them in a hotel for the duration, if they were agreeable to that, then that would flip it over to 100%, I would think.
Can I speak to that? It's the individual that I'm rather certain it is. This individual is going to be opposed to everything at any point. He's opposed to the dogs being at the dog.
No, we know
He's
this.
opposed to people walking by his house. Like, he is just opposition, so I don't think that he would be.
That approach is not going to work in this particular case. And in fact, in the letter that council received, he stated that he was ill and needed to stay at home.
Yeah, which is reiterated in a subsequent email that he sent, saying, talking about that he's ill and that his wife has had an accident, or 3 accidents, and resting at home. So therefore, this has a high impact on both of them.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah. So we can take that with the credence that we want to give it. So now, be honest,
Yes.
because I already know the answer, having lived in LA, where there's lots of filming,
Yeah.
and being in the business. What are typical fees for a production this size? 7-day production.
Normal fees, well, if you guys want to go with West Van charges about $1,200 a day, plus parking for each day.
Parking at sort of the numbers that we're talking about, 25 per vehicle per day and 100 per
Yeah.
truck.
Yeah.
About those numbers.
And West Van is considered high. Vancouver, I think they do, it's either 700 per meter block or 350 per 2-hour parking block.
You know, the difference between West Van and Vancouver and us is they have businesses to promote.
Yeah.
We don't.
Yeah.
We have no reason to attract anybody here.
Mhm.
We don't need Lions Bay to feature in anything for any sort of municipal reasons.
Yeah.
The only reason we would consider such a thing is the fee revenue, because
Yeah.
that's all we get out of it
Yeah.
as a corporate entity.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure some people like the notoriety or the cachet, but as a municipality, as a council, all
And I
we-
don't know if I should say this because I can't guarantee it, but I've been talking to Corey Rogers and Kim Bailey, and they have assured me they are going to be making a donation either towards an improvement down in Lions Bay, but towards the Lions Bay and the Lions Bay Council. So,
I've heard those before, not from necessarily from those parties, and
Yeah.
yet to see the check, but
yeah. That's why I was reluctant.
that
to
would
say
be a
it.
policy matter that we don't have policy for today,
Yeah.
and that's certainly not anything that we can decide on.
Yeah.
Compensation for affected residents is a whole different thing.
And our normal procedure with that is if we have communications with somebody and somebody is wanting not to be affected by the noise, we do provide hotels if they want that. So we do give them the opportunity, but we have to be able to communicate with them to talk about that.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So-
as
so-
you're getting held up into your not being able to get in your home, in the productions that I work on, we've never done that.
Those were Americans.
Yeah, the public has the right of way, they always do, right? And these smaller productions, just so that everybody understands, they rely on the communities in order to function. They rely on being able to film at these sites because unlike the studios and the bigger features, they don't have stages. So they are location driven, they're location driven people that work there, and so they understand the need to be polite, courteous, follow the bylaws, because they know their next job is not necessarily gonna come if they abuse a situation.
You know, you're obviously reading from the same script that the last people read from, because it was almost word for word. Yeah, I would like to accommodate this. It's far down the road, through no fault of your own. It's come before us. Our policy is lacking in this regard, or let's not complete, let's say. So I hate making policy on the fly, but if I could suggest that we consider the two things that council needs to do, that is to what is it, Peter? Waive the 100% approval requirement? Is it just a waiver?
I think that's what it would come down to.
And rescinding of the noise bylaw for the period, is that right? Or is rescinding
yeah.
right? Abeyance, non-enforcement, what do you want?
Relaxation of relevant portions. It says relation.
For the duration? What is that number again? Westvan's number?
Oh, it's 12 to 1,500 for film-based stuff.
So right now our filming fee is 300 a day. Because Lions Bay gets nothing out of this, no extra commerce. Maybe somebody we had in the proposal that I think I've seen. It's not in this one. There's a credit requirement. Filmed in Lions Bay, House Sound, BC, I think, or something. But I don't believe that's in this policy. Do you remember?
I don't know.
I think that's in the proposed policy, that there was a credit there. So maybe somebody says, hey, that looks like a nice place, maybe I'm going to buy a house there one day. Although why? That doesn't benefit council.
Yeah, it's in here, accreditation.
Accreditation.
There was a Harrison Ford movie that was done in the same house years back. By the time we hit the movie, it was Seattle.
The first house that we lived in Lions Bay was the location for a gay porn movie. So I'll trump you on that one.
Did you get the accreditation?
Did you really get the house that way, or you have to be turned away?
It was before we lived there, but that's sort of the accreditation you don't want. So, you know, there needs to be, there's a lot of work needed on the policy. I haven't seen it, by the way. Just to recognize the house, that's
So it's like ghost or what?
So there's no filming on the weekend, right?
No.
No.
So it's just the it's Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Why is that, Jermaine?
Just ask.
Just for
I'm trying to get my head around the actual impact based on these two maps, where the sets are, where the trucks are, how people will actually be moving, and who is truly impacted.
Okay, we've spent quite a bit of time on this, but I don't want to sell it short either. So the letter was received by everybody. That's the polling letter.
Yes.
So they read it there and then on the doorstep, or do they get it before, or what?
They read it, and when he drops it off, he knocks on the door. If nobody's there, he'll leave it on the doorstep, and then he'll go back and visit, and he'll have the letter too. The next process that is in other municipalities, if the poll is approved, then we do go around with a resident letter saying, you know, based on the positive results of the poll, the municipality has approved the filming, and that's dropped off. And we do continue communication, especially with people that have concerns, all through the filming. So basically, Jacob's job and my job is to go up to somebody and say, hey, are you having any problems with the generator? Is there too much noise? So we can continue to address the concerns that people have, just to make sure that we are following through with what we said.
Could I ask you a question? You're talking about adopting two motions here. One to, sorry if I'm not getting the language right.
It's very arcane. It's good stuff if you like that kind of stuff. But go ahead.
One issue is the 100% polling, and one issue is the noise curfew. But wouldn't the noise curfew be dependent on a successful poll?
No, because we have a noise bylaw that would trump any resident desire. So we have to, what's the word again?
Relax the
Relax.
relevant portions.
Yeah, the noise bylaw is independent of filming.
Okay.
You know, it's a residential area. People don't want to have a rock crusher next door.
Sure. My question was really, if you did waive the 100% part of this and gave us, say, a 90% poll, and we got, you know, 90% of the people to say they would be okay with the noise curfew being extended, wouldn't that be okay?
Well, that's what we're debating.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the other issue too is no matter what we decide, it's all dependent upon the character quality of the people actually doing the work. Like we've had some movies come in here, like big movies and everything, where they promise the moon and delivered very little and have all kinds of resident complaints. So, you know, if you guys run a good ship or something like that, maybe it could be fine. I can appreciate that.
Again, that's a shortcoming of the policy.
And you know what, I totally get that, and I've been doing this for about 15, 20 years, and not that people are gonna check my reputation, I've ran into bad film companies before, and I've gone into areas and cleaned it up, and that can only be done with doing exactly what I said. Is actually talking to people, communicating, and showing some integrity and following through with what they say. We call those burned locations, and I have recovered numbers of communities that were supposedly burnt and now are allowing filming again, you know, based on the process that I try and enforce with everybody on this production. So. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn, I'm just saying I've been doing this for a long time and I understand what burns a location and what doesn't.
Okay, well, I think you guys are probably pretty good advocates for yourselves.
Yes.
I don't think there's going to be much concern on our part, if I speak for all of us in that regard. Yeah, certainly any future policy is going to have to contractualize all of that stuff. But the current one is what we're working with. And the proposition is that we will waive certain aspects of it. Is it only the 100% approval, which would, let's just say for argument's sake, would be to amend it this time for this application only to a 90% approval? Is that all?
I think so. Other than the noise bylaw.
So let's take that as proposition.
Well, hang on. No, the other part that depends on whether or not you're talking about fees or not.
Yeah. So no, I'm just talking about the policy aspects now. Forget
But
the noise bylaw. I'm fine with.
The fees are in the policy.
Yeah.
So that's another.
So another aspect of the policy that we seek to do a one-time change on, is I would propose to make this a little more interesting for the municipality. Is to change the filming fee from $300 a day to. Remember, Lions Bay gets nothing out of this. No business, no commerce, nothing that West Van and Vancouver do. You know, people. The film crew goes and buys all their catering from the Vancouver Catering R Us. We don't have that. We don't have any businesses that will benefit from the production. This is it. So I would say we're on the high end of the filming fee scale, which is, you know, the $1,200 a day range instead of $300. Damage deposit is currently $5,000. Yeah, sure, okay, fine, because I don't anticipate much damage. But in future, I would expect some sort of future policy would be some sort of doing what we promised deposit, and it would be $50,000, all of which is given back if you did what you said, type of thing. But that's not. I wouldn't say that's on. The filming in Lions Bay Parks, that's not going to happen. So it's kind of moot for now. Parking fees, filming license, fire rescue services, municipal service. So in order to move this ahead, unless anybody else has any further suggestions, I would suggest that we, for this application only, amend the 100% approval required to a 90% approval, and up the film fee to $1,200 a day. And Jim?
I think to cover that a little better, I think we need to insist on a little bit more polling.
Okay.
Some areas above. I think that makes sense.
So let's, for argument's sake, say the lower part of Kelvin Grove Way.
Yep.
Up to the bend.
I would think so.
Okay, so that would be specifically. There's no house built at 35 yet, but that would be. Now these guys all back onto it. So it'd be from 10. Well, it's going to be here, right?
Yeah,
So
that's what I was going to go with here.
it's going to be from 10 to
This is, up here is 100, or no, where is it?
50.
Yeah.
Plus.
This is where it goes from 1 to 200 up here.
Okay, but that's just municipal. Right?
Yeah, no, I know, that's fine.
So it's 20 to 230.
Yeah.
75, 95, 100, 500, inclusive. Yeah.
Yeah.
So adding 20 to 230, Kelvin Grove Way.
Yep.
So that'd be all these guys here. The lower, these low. What about these guys? I mean, they're backing down the slope.
Well, if you look at the Fuelas, I don't know if they're going to get affected by that much up there. They might, I don't know.
No,
To
because
be somebody who walks from that beach all the time, it really is only that lower part
Yeah.
of Kelvin Grove Way that
These-
you can see
yeah.
from that cul-de-sac down.
this one that's on the freeway, or this one on the other side of the road as well? Because there's trees everywhere, right? So you can't.
Yeah, it's really only the few to the far right
It's
that you
these
can
ones,
see.
I drove up there tonight looking at it, and I could see, I was amazed at how high these trees were along here.
But the noise goes through the trees.
Yeah, no, but there's still, the trees still do offer a lot of barrier these guys don't have down here.
Okay, so let's just say, instead of all of these guys here, 75, 95, 105, 115, 125, 135, 145, 155, and 165.
Yep.
You get all those? What's on the record? It's everything that ends with a 5, in fact. Is that correct? On the lower side of Kelvin Grove Way, plus Periwinkle.
Yeah.
It's a lot of polling, but that's your fault for bringing to us so late.
Yes.
Okay, so, yes?
And that brings a different comfort level with the going from 100% to 90%.
And is 90% a number that you guys can work with?
Yeah, it's on the high end, I'll be honest with you, but it is a number that we can work with.
Well, I mean, the
As you
municipal...
increase the area, you're going to increase the amount of people that may, like, some people just don't like film. But, yes,
But that's your job, is to present the proposition to them in such a way that they get it.
Yes.
I would suggest that your letter is a little higher font size and less detail. Maybe a table or two, a few graphs.
Bottle of wine?
That's... assume you guys operate to a budget.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the municipal business, we're 50% plus 1. So, can we live with a lower number than 90? We want to be pretty sure there is majority consensus. So is the number 90?
See how many people you're actually talking about now. I think the number before was 23, wasn't it?
How many houses we polled?
23 we polled originally.
Well, 23 on the list. Most of them haven't responded yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you like our map? It's pretty good, eh? We use it all the time.
You gonna take it with you when you go?
For the time, they're almost own 2/3 of it.
You're gonna take it with you, Carl?
No, I'm going to suggest that it gets updated, though. I've got about 1,000 ideas.
You'll have plenty of time on
These
your
ones are,
hands.
some of these are quite high. Yeah.
Oh yeah, those ones are, but these ones.
Yeah.
So do we count?
Round numbers?
All of them's fine.
Yeah, but there's also Periwinkle. That's another 20.
So it's adding 29 properties. To what was
Adding 29.
previously 23.
Doubling your
That's
component.
52, so you could have 5 people objecting and still be 90% or more.
Let's lower it.
Unless we lower it to something like 85.
Well, by the time you get to Periwinkle, there'll probably be fewer people objecting over there.
If they do their jobs correctly, yes. Yeah. What you should do is make some noise and say, can you hear it? I mean, that's how we tested our fire siren. Nobody could hear it.
And in case people are away, the municipalities, and I'm not trying to do your business, but they always put a cap on how many visits. Like most municipalities are 5 visits, we normally do 5+. But sometimes people are on vacations during the 4 days that we're polling, and I just want to make sure that that's
Well,
how
again,
we would address somebody not
it's
answering.
a shortcoming in the policy which needs to be fixed. Yeah, yeah, we do. I think we'd leave that one to staff's discretion, that it would be an adequate poll.
Mm-hmm.
That the number, whether it's 85, 80, 90, whatever the number ends up being, that it's a good representation.
Well, that a reasonable effort has been made to reach each and every residence.
To the filming license satisfaction?
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with that overlay, with the fact that staff recommends that this is okay, based on the poll.
Based on
Well,
their polling
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
and their satisfaction that it was a reasonable
Yeah.
poll.
Yeah. Well, at that point, it's not going to be our recommendation. It's going to be our decision.
Yeah, it is then.
Um,
But then it's administrative.
And that support is defined as lack of objection, because there may be houses that they can't
Yeah.
get anybody after 5 tries.
Absolutely. But you can accommodate that administratively?
As
Was that
long
a
as
policy
it's, as
matter?
long as it's on the tape and council agrees that that's reasonable.
No, but I mean, that's not exceeding your authority to make administrative decision. I don't want this challenged.
I want clarity that support equals lack of,
Response.
I think that's a fine definition that you can work to, and
because I don't know that that's necessarily how one could, one might be able to interpret it otherwise.
well, that's certainly
and
not
do.
how our
So-
votes are interpreted.
So if council agrees that that's a reasonable interpretation of support, then,
You're okay on that one?
Absolutely.
And what about satisfaction as to reasonable effort? How do you handle that administratively?
well, I've just heard that 5 times is a reasonable amount.
But if I went by the house at 2 in the morning and said, I visited, that's not a visit.
You do morning and evenings, right?
So it's got to be reasonable.
Yeah, well, what we don't, we go at around 9 o'clock because we don't like to go too early. And what the practice is to go every 2 hours. So we have the pollers go to every 2 hours, and then we go up till 7 o'clock at night because we don't want to disturb people's dinner time or their supper routine. We'll do that between 2 and 4 days in a row.
Now, we don't have the ability in Lions Bay to provide postal addresses. We don't actually have a cross-reference to street addresses, or do we now? Do we?
No, we don't.
And
We
besides
don't-
which, that might be a privacy issue.
That would
so-
be definitely a privacy
Yeah.
issue.
So we wouldn't be able to supply postal addresses, which are PO boxes. I'm pointing at the pointing at the post box place.
Jacob's been, he's worked in areas because a lot of time the Google Maps, they don't actually, the addresses that the city provides don't actually map what the buildings are there. So he actually makes a map himself and he draws on it. So we provide the municipality with a map that we've made, whichever way we can through Google Maps, which will show all the yeses, all the no answers, and everybody with concerns. And all those numbers must add up, and so everything's addressed. And all the comments are left on there too.
Okay, so if I can then summarize discussion as a proposal that I'd ask for a motion on, is that we, for this application only, what's the word on the, not rescind, waive?
I think it would be that council amend to 90 or 85 or whatever percent you're going to choose, amend the 100% support requirement of the policy in respect of the film application for a Midnight Kiss, and that the film permit application for a Midnight Kiss be approved, including relaxations of relevant portions of the noise bylaw, notwithstanding objections from no more than whatever percent we choose.
Okay, let's just discuss that percentage. Currently, it seems to be pegged at 90. I mean, that does mean that 5 objections stymies it, based on the number of houses that we talked about. Seems kind of tight to me. Not that, I mean, if 10% of the people object, I mean, that's the criterion for alternative approval process. In the other way, of course, but 10% of the people polled say something. Do we want to relax that even further? Or is 90 a good number? Jim, you're the guy who wants to increase the
Well, I'm trying to show a bit of an expansion of the polling area.
Widespread support.
Widespread support, to show widespread support. And if we can prove, if we're doing that, I mean, yeah, I think we can only put the best foot forward and do what we can do to what we seem is reasonable as a council.
What numbers have you seen, approval levels? Have you seen,
It depends. I mean, the lowest I've ever seen is around 60%, but we have to address everybody's concerns. Basically, the polling is used to, 1, to identify areas that are getting hot. 2 is to address anybody's concerns. And if you get a negative poll, that's basically because the area is being overfilled. My experience of talking to everybody, if you communicate with everybody and you say, hey, this is what we want to do, most people do not object.
we haven't had a film in that location for 5 years, so I don't think that's going to be the issue. Yeah, okay, let's leave it at 90
I would
then.
want to get a 90% poll anyway in this situation. And in my career, and I'm not bragging once again, in 12 years, I've never gotten less than a 90%.
Okay, well, that means you guys would have your work cut out for you to make sure that your materials obtain that approval, because
Yeah.
this is hard to read.
Yes.
Well, I think another point is that some of the people in the area who historically opposed filming have moved away, so it might be a little easier now than it was before.
I support their objections, as you know, but you know, we're making a decision for the entire municipality. But yeah, okay, let's leave it at 90. So then, and then finally, a one-time amendment to the fee schedule of the policy to change the filming fee to $1,200 per day, and that's it. And
Can I also request that fire vehicle access is unrestricted right to the bottom of Tidewater? There's a new house under construction there that houses under construction have gotten fire and need to have ready access to it.
we certainly won't rescind or repeal or hold in abeyance our highway bylaw or our highway bylaw. So there's no parking in cul-de-sacs.
Well, except that, as you can see from the map, or in the materials, there would be 3 trucks in that cul-de-sac next to the 6 construction vehicles at that house.
But they're off the highway, off the roadway. They need to be off the road. The fire truck's got to be able to turn around.
This application has 3 trucks in that cul-de-sac next to 185.
Okay, no on that one, right?
Well, it's just that once these things get going, they need to police it and make sure they keep the area clear.
Unless there's a driver with the truck.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't park in cul-de-sacs. Ever. Even ambulances. So, but that's just enforcement of the bylaw. So, we're not going to talk about the park. What is it called? It's the highways bylaw, right? It governs parking.
It would be traffic and parking, yeah.
Okay.
In these normal situations, we do meet with the fire chief on hand, and in areas with cul-de-sacs, we have talked to the other municipality fire chief to make sure that if we park this way, is he okay with it, and we always take our directive for him for safety. We always have to maintain fire lanes wherever we go, so, and our best way is to get approval from the fire chief, which we were planning to do, so.
Yeah, I mean, as the people responsible to the community for its safety, you know, it really irks me when people park in cul-de-sacs because they don't know there's not going to be a fire. Okay, so you'll handle that one. Good. So that's that. And then the final thing, the second final thing is, no, you already said about the noise bylaw, and the other thing is to authorize the CAO to make it happen.
Right.
How do you say that?
Be authorized to sign any filming permit or other incidental documentation.
Okay, it's a little bit all over the place, but do you have enough to produce the motion out of that?
Yep.
Go back and listen to the
Yeah. You do?
Yeah,
You've
do you
got
want me to run
sufficient
through it or not?
notes? Do we need that reread? No. Somebody care to second the motion? It's been seconded. Any further discussion, or are we ready for the question? Is that ready? No? You good? Sure? This is it? Fred?
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed and carried. Okay, you got it. You're lucky.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Okay, good luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for all your time.
Thank you very much.
I really appreciate it.
We didn't ask them if they were happy with the $1,200 fee, but no. I didn't see anybody blanch.
Well, and they didn't hesitate to speak up in other matters, so if it wasn't doable, they would have said something.
Okay, close the door.
Yes, it's not just me.
We're not all wearing coats.
The sweater. Okay, let's move on. Is the tape still running? Yes,
Yeah,
it
I've been
is.
checking.
Anybody need a break after that scintillating piece of council business? On the fly? Okay. So we changed the order with unanimous assent of council, so we'll go back to the order now, and that is the item that is labeled in the agenda as item 5, verbal update on the status of the removal of the Magnesia Creek infiltration gallery. Peter. As you know, I particularly like verbal updates, but this one will be read into the minutes. in great detail, correct?
As much detail as I've got in front of me.
Okay.
In terms of the Magnesia Creek Infiltration Gallery, the protective galvanized steel screen was removed, as was the fill material and large black HDPE infiltration pipe. The old screen needs to be properly mounted and a handrail reinstalled. This will be complete by Wednesday.
Okay, this is as a result of deliberation at the Integrated Council, that's not the right word. Infrastructure Council, thank you.
Infrastructure Committee.
Integrated Infrastructure Committee.
Maybe I need a break. So not unexpected. Had we made that recommendation to council to approve? I think we did, right? Council approved that. So that's the report. Thank you. Can I have a motion to receive that report and a second? Any discussion? All in favor, opposed and carried. And then also a verbal update on the parking signage, CN parking lot and Lions Bay Beach Park.
Okay, so...
To be recorded verbatim in the minutes down to the last punctuation mark.
We are awaiting an order of permit required signs without the May to September for installation because we've run out. And our backhoe is out of commission for 2 weeks while Finning addresses a deficiency in the digging boom and hydraulics. Our current schedule is presently taken up with removal of the infiltration gallery, the annual pump out of
Which has been finished.
the annual pump out of the wastewater treatment plant, and preparation of council chambers, the installation of a developer-driven water service at 61 Brunswick Beach, which is, we're getting impatient with this. So that is it for parking signage. Lions Bay Beach Park, shower pad has been formed and poured and is sufficiently cured to install the shower this week. Fence repairs are 90% complete. Painting will happen in the spring, and the handrails are being fabricated. CN parking lot, the drainage has been designed. The drainage that was designed has been signed off by the engineer, but work is on hold pending resolution of our lease agreement. And Kelvin Grove parking lot, or sorry, not parking lot, but the, well, you're going to get more than you bargained for. The Kelvin Grove lot that we're working on. Water services in, sanitary and storm services to be in by the end of the week.
Sorry, I don't think we know anything about this.
35 Kelvin Grove.
But that's a private matter. That's not council's concern.
Well, it's work that the municipality is doing. I'm just,
Oh, okay.
if you don't want the update, that's fine.
That's call work. Okay, so thanks. Is that it?
Yep.
Okay. Motion to receive this one and a second. I have a few points on this one. Besides the fact that the infiltration gallery is now gone, minus a day, so that's no longer a reason not to be doing things. And I take the point that some parking signage is still to come.
Mm-hmm.
Just remind us what this... Oh, yes. I had asked Ron to look at this, he being the chair of the beach committee, and that is that the pad is poured a good 1.5 meters, maybe 2 meters from the edges, but nobody's going to go and sit on that 2 meter strip of grass because there's a shower behind them and a wall in front of them. So it seems to me, my understanding was that the pad was going to be poured in the corner, not 2 meters from the corner, meaning we're using a huge amount of lawn for a shower. I had asked Ron to look at that. I don't know if you did or didn't. But have you looked? I mean,
I haven't seen it.
The pad's it's not in the middle of the lawn, but it's not discreetly located in the corner of the upper lawn. Can you take a look at it and just see what you think, all of you? Especially you, Jim, this being your biz.
Well, no, this is an approved process. The plans, the drawings, whatever's going on has been done.
No, there's been no drawings for this. This was cited in the field by staff. Poured a pad for a shower.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And I assume that when the final pad eventuates, there's a box there that I assume is this treatment polishing chamber.
I don't think there's any polishing to be done. There's
It's an infiltration gallery, in fact. Different kind. But anyway, it's not lined up. It's not flat. It's not straight. It looks quite bad. But I would hate to be installing all
Is
the.
it finished or this is unfinished?
Well, it's poured, and there's a pipe sticking up out of the poured pad.
But everything around it is already, all the landscaping is done? I guess we should
Well,
take
it's
a look.
solid.
No.
No, it's not all done. It's still pretty rough.
So there's a form, and it's been poured, and it's been cured.
But the form's gone. Yeah,
So also the form's been removed.
My only concern is the location of the pad. It's a good meter and a bit in from the edges, which wastes that meter because nobody's going to be able to sit there. There's going to be water spraying everywhere. So why was it not put in the corner? Maybe there's a good reason for it. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll have to ask.
Yeah, I had also thought that there were supposed to be rails to go around, but maybe that's the reason why it's back, so that people don't fall off the edge when they're having a little shower. I don't know. It just seems like a waste of space. So that was that one, and what was the one after that?
Beach Park, CN
lease on the CN lot. That's long resolved.
It was in principle in terms of the number for the annual rent, but then when we got to look at their proposed lease terms, there's a lot in there that made me blanch.
It's my word.
So yeah, there's requirements for $10 million liability policy, $10 million environmental liability policy, which a whole bunch of stuff like that. Like we've got a $2 million environmental liability policy that costs us quite a bit of money.
18,000
Going
a
to
year.
10 million.
Yeah.
We haven't got the quote yet.
Yeah, but the 2 is 18,000 a year.
Well, the
Yeah,
municipal
that's not-
business is
it's
very dirty
18,000
business.
per year.
Is it? Oh, I thought it was 3 years. I thought it was 18 every year.
Can I ask a question? May sound a little naive, but who's asking for the environmental policy?
CN. So there's a number of changes that we
But
requested.
Aren't
in-
they? Aren't they the ones likely to have the problem that caused the environmental problem to start
Yeah.
with?
Well, this was pointed out. It was pointed out that it's been a parking lot for the municipality for 50 years. Prior to that, it was CN's or their predecessors' land, so they would have control over anything that was prior to that, and that we should really only be responsible from 1971 onward. But making reasonable requests like that, and no, everything was rejected out of hand as being contrary to CN law. It's a
Yeah, well, there's no
new
such
law,
thing as
I think.
CN law, as we very well know.
Yeah.
Would you like me to
I'm
get
still
out the hammer?
still working through some of the
Because
stuff, but
I only hold the hammer for another few weeks, but that's bullshit, and I'll say it on record.
I mean,
CN, no.
I'll come back to you on
Yeah,
this.
let's work on that one. They can't move the goalposts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we're working through a couple of different angles of things that have to be done. In terms of the drainage stuff, even was their requirements were going to be ridiculous, and so.
But it's
anyways,
our requirements. They don't even need drainage.
I know it wouldn't even be happening if we hadn't offered to do it. It never has had drainage. So, but these things, pointing out these things,
Yeah.
it didn't seem.
No,
to,
you're
it was
dealing
going
with
on
the
deaf
no
ears.
people.
It was,
Check this out.
real estate division in Toronto.
See, here's
So-
my CN coffee mug. CN coffee mug. See it? What does it say? It says no. They don't give those coffee mugs out because, at least in the municipal world, those buggers. Okay.
So we're continuing to work on a couple different aspects of this, but yeah, I will update you and call upon your services if required.
My hammer services. Well, I don't know how much of a hammer it is, to be honest, but it seemed to have had an effect before. So let's see.
call jackhammer burr.
I think it's going to need to be bigger than a jackhammer. Hammer breaker. Just by the by, I don't believe our little backhoe is going to be moving massive boulders out of that parking lot. But we'll see about that one. So just quickly run through the points. Can I just see that report? Because there's one other thing that I flagged.
Council chambers.
Council chambers.
I think we just spotted table and they just put the table together for us.
Okay. I'm assuming that's not on any critical path because there's plenty of things that are council chambers.
Yeah, it's coming together though. I mean,
But it's on no. It's not even on the priority list. Whereas there's lots of things that are. Sharp, Patsy, and Lot. So that was Kelvin Grove Lot. Okay, that's no longer there. We're permit required without the May to September. Where would those go?
I forget, but there's a few places. There's. Yeah, sorry, I can't think.
Yeah, okay, not to worry. There was a long, comprehensive list that you put together as a result of our progress around the village.
Yeah.
That's still happening.
Yeah, I believe some of those things have been addressed, but
I have noticed a few changes. I don't know if anybody noticed on the highway, the Ministry of Transport's idea of community-focused signage to reduce noise. Of course, it's sort of midway between Montezambic Creek and Sunset, so nobody lives there. And it says, please, it is forbidden to throw rocks at this sign. No, it doesn't really say that. It says something like, please notice that people live nearby and abrogate your vehicular sound pattern or something. Okay, not quite that bad. It's a joke. That's what their idea of is asking motorcycles to slow down in Lions Bay. 15 kilometers from here, pointing in the wrong direction and in language nobody can understand. Point being that it's new. It's only been up 2 days. I just shake my head. The whole idea was to have something like, please, mutual respect, keep the revs under 5,000 or 2,000, I can't remember what it was, specifically as other communities, progressive communities have done for motorcycle noise. But that was too much for the Ministry of Transport. Okay, that's all I had. So has this been moved to receive? Yeah.
Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure.
Thank you.
Get it right.
Yeah. They should also get one of these coffee mugs. Okay. Ready for the question on that one? Receiving the report, that is. All in favour? And opposed? That carries. Thank you. And then there's a recommendation that staff prepare a letter to the Minister of Flinro and now Rural Development, don't forget, RD, from the Mayor, whoever that is, whether me or next, indicating reasons why the village of Lions Bay should be eligible for the Rural Dividend Program and other programs based on rural and or small population. It's an ongoing discussion. Why do you need this authorization? Just to tell you what to do. Or you need the
it's sort of it's an update and an endorsement for going down this path. It's lobbying the provincial government to do stuff is a council thing.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, there's a grant opportunity which we may or may not be eligible for. The grant ranges from 100% grant to 60%, depending on how you read the thing, for which rural communities are eligible. The read of that is that that's not something we'd be eligible for, but this is for an additional grant that's given to small and rural communities, not quite northern communities, that we want to be eligible for. Bowen is. They got 70 grand.
So the idea here really is to get the province to change the criteria that they use to define what is a rural community eligible for these kinds of grants. And that's important because the federal government also uses whatever the province uses for their programs. So where there's federal things like any federal programs that rely on rural criteria are going to look to the provincial standard. So if we can get the provincial standard changed so that we're not automatically out of the running every time just because we're within metro, then that's going to be to our advantage. Whether or not they're programs that we want to take advantage of or apply for or not, it's just we'll have an option if we can get this changed.
And it would be Flinro adjudicating that? Not the Ministry of Community, Sport, Natural Development, Useless Projects and municipalities?
Apparently it is it is this department that is involved with, it's this arm of the province that's sort of looking after rural programs. So it's going to be, it's their review of their program.
Wendy Co works for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just think that if we don't do it, we're not gonna know whether it's possible.
Yeah.
Let's give them a chance to tell us no.
But we may not succeed, but, because there's lots of differing criteria that others can point to, like Bones and Island and...
The squeaky wheel that gets the oil.
Hmm?
It's the squeaky wheel that gets the oil.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's not untrue. Okay, well, I mean, the idea right now is just to direct staff to prepare a letter in consultation with. Well, you pretty much got all my material, so I don't think you need any further consultation to see the first draft. This will be the next council seeing it, of course, but everybody good with that? So can I have a motion in that respect? Thanks, and a second. Any further discussion? All in favour? Opposed? And carried. Good. Right, moving on. Nothing from the mayor. Have we done all the extra pieces here, Peter? I think we have, right? There's some correspondence coming, but that's later. Council, Bain, verbal 1.
I have a little bit here. I wanted to write it out, so it would tumble on the words, but Ron and I were speaking on the phone this afternoon and decided that we wanted to make a comment. So if you hang on to your hat, this is addressed to you, Carl. This evening is your last scheduled official meeting as mayor, as you well know. We would be remiss if we did not take a minute to say to you what we think. Ron was unable to attend this meeting, and as he and I served the full 4 years with you, we have collaborated on this short note. Ron wrote to you recently. There have been some glitches along the way, but boy, did you forward sled with strength and leadership. Thank you. I have not met a more selfless, determined person whose mantra was all about making Lions Bay better and spend every walking and sometimes sleeping hours doing so. I concur. You brought a personal skill level second to none. Your energy and drive is infectious and unstoppable. On behalf of your colleagues and our residents, we thank you. We know the term has come at a great personal expense to you and frustration, but know that your efforts are extremely appreciated. Us.
Here, here.
And maybe Sean would like to put that in the minutes.
That's very kind, thank you. Gosh.
Would you like a copy?
Yes. Despite the fact that this was a conspiracy not open to all of council.
We're good at that.
Thank you. It's very kind.
We learned well.
Yeah. How does one handle that? Motion to receive?
Yes.
I don't think I should be the one making that motion. It's been moved. It's been seconded. Any further discussion? Other than to say thank you. I'll call the question. All in favour? Opposed and carried. Thank you, gentlemen. And staff. I mean, I'm sure you're going to come up with something very similar to that as well. Wait, we've done staff reports.
Actually, I had something and I forgot to print it.
Is it liquid?
It's going to have to wait until till you hand over the reins.
Till I hand over the reins. Okay, well, there's one more council meeting that I'm attending, but it's going to be as a civilian. I'm going to be attending a lot more, don't worry. Most of them, in fact. But I'm sure it's to a certain extent you can probably corroborate the waking hours, the sleeping hours. I've had some complaints about the volume of emails I send, but it's been a blast, I have to say. So thank you. Okay, let's move on. If everybody's in agreement, which we are, because we just took a vote on that. There's no committee reports, right? There's been no meetings, and there's no emergency services reports. There are no resolutions. There's one bylaw for introduction, and first, second, and third reading. This is the bylaw essentially providing the CEO authority to do deals on the new lot at 35 Calvin Grove Way. The report's on page 43. We've all read it, I have no doubt. It's very similar to the one we just did for 52 Brunswick. Can I have a motion that the 35 Calvin Grove Way delegation bylaw number 553 of 2018 be introduced and read a first, second, and third time? It's been moved and seconded. Thanks. Any discussion? No? Ready for the question? All in favour? Opposed and carried. Good. Correspondence. Lacking our correspondence delegate, I'll take care of this. I'm starting on page 47. The first three are general correspondence. This is on a grant program, somewhat targeted at the resolution we've just received. This was to a certain extent announced at UBCM, but I'm so lost in all the program acronyms and grants that staff is going to have to take care of that.
This was the one that I sent the email about. It's the recreation one, and then I sent the email out saying what the levels of funding were.
Yeah, and there's thresholds and all that stuff. So that's good to know. The one thing that you can say about the new government, federal and provincial, is that they're willing to spend public monies on small municipalities, so we should take advantage of that while it lasts. Okay, then this piece on the proclaiming October as Foster Family Month in British Columbia. I don't believe there's any action required. We don't have to make a resolution to do the same within Lions Bay, so we won't. The third letter is from the fuzz, the provincial fuzz, and the people what control them, about cannabis. We're already ahead of this one, Peter?
Yep.
Both in our zoning and in our policies, correct?
Yep.
Yep.
It's been sent off to the appropriate department.
Fine. So essentially Lions Bay will entertain no cannabis applications.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. And so that's that. We'll do this all together. In the package is an email thread that Council's been part of that is now encapsulated for public record from Brenda Broughton regarding the highway speed change, and also an on-table item 11B
And 11C.
and an 11C, a letter from Michael Broughton on the same topic, and a letter from Louis Peterson on the same topic. And I just borrow this.
2 emails from you.
The council has seen all of these. It's now in the public record. Anybody need to add, subtract anything on these ones? No? I'll take a motion to receive correspondence then. Thanks. In a second. It's been moved and seconded. Anything overall? Good to go? No?
When you say anything overall, what do you mean?
Any discussion on any and all of the correspondence?
Well, the only concern I had is that and I guess this was voted on before I joined council. I'm not really a big fan of this speed limit increase, and some of the correspondence indicated that all of council was in support of it.
No, I don't think it was never said there was a unanimous vote on this.
No, okay.
We don't
I just
record
want to
votes.
clarify that's.
Yeah, no, got it.
Okay.
Yeah, and future councils are free to reconsider, obviously. Well, is that true? Can they reconsider a past motion?
Yeah. They can.
Okay, well, that's a jurisprudence thing.
Yeah,
That's within the community charter. We're not going to debate that now.
I guess, if I may,
Yeah.
just a couple of points. One is that I believe that there is no contractual requirement that I can determine for the municipality in respect of specifications for the highway. Whether those specifications are related to noise or design or vegetation, what have you. Certainly, there was a lot of consultation and a lot of work put in by a lot of people who achieved a lot of good things in terms of getting the ministry and their contractors to agree to a bunch of things that wouldn't have happened otherwise. And I'm sure, and I have looked through a lot of the HAG minutes, not lately, but I did some time ago for an FOI that I had to look through. And it, you know, there's a lot of information in there, and there's certainly a lot of lobbying that was done, and a lot, and I don't specifically remember, but if people like Michael Broughton and certainly yourself, Jim, say that, yeah, we obtained agreements from the ministry and their contractors to do certain things, and they did those things, that's great. But those are not any contractual obligations or things that, you know, if things change in terms of the design of the highway or the speed limit, or as it already has changed in terms of the removal of vegetation and the installation of concrete barriers for safety reasons, we can't be held liable for that as far as I can see. Those, you know, the highway is not our jurisdiction. We can lobby all we want and hopefully succeed in achieving things, and have succeeded in achieving things. But when it comes to, sorry, just before I go on, with respect to private agreements that have been referenced, there was an email that was produced that indicated that residents, particularly I think along Panorama, who had a lot of noise issues above the highway, it sounds like, and I stand to be corrected, but it sounds like they were all treated the same and given $18,000 each. And that, in the opinion of some, if not all of them, that was woefully inadequate to achieve the purposes of noise reduction or noise mitigation that was required.
Let alone loss in value of their properties.
Just not even talking about the loss of value of the properties, just in terms of trying to deal with the noise and trying to mitigate, you know, the things that were suggested as noise mitigation measures. The one email that I did read from the person who indicated what they received, you know, that it would cost at least 10 times that in order to put in triple pane windows throughout their house as opposed to double pane, or to build walls or fences that were high enough to mitigate the impacts that they were facing. And that relied as well on all of their neighbors doing exactly the same thing, because if you've got some sections of no walls, then you're not going to have much noise mitigation. Anyways, I think that, you know, I really don't see any potential for liability on the part of the municipality in lobbying for a change, or in agreeing to a change that has been studied by Modi now for quite a while, and that I think that we're going to have to just wait and see what the impacts are, and whether or not the change in a speed limit is actually going to result in people trying to match a reasonable speed limit as opposed to just driving what they want to drive. I'm not an expert. I have no idea how that's, you know, my opinion doesn't count any more than anybody else's, but as someone who drives that highway all the time, I just tend to go with the flow. And you know, people sometimes drive slow, people drive fast. It really depends sometimes on time of day and conditions, and hopefully when the conditions are poor, people will slow down, because there are still way too many accidents between, you know, throughout this whole section, but particularly north of Central Lions Bay. So that's about all I've got to say on it right now.
Okay, good. That's a good summary. Thanks. I think you had something, Jim?
Well, I want to qualify some of this stuff, because we went through 8 years of meetings with all that about the highway, and some of those meetings were knockdown, drag out fights. A lot of them. I mean, there was a lot of meetings. Like, it was really, you know, some of the residents really got involved, and some of them were quite emotional, and some were very sort of conciliatory and trying to get things working. But the reality is that when the highway changed as a result of the renovation to Highway 99 to Sea to Sky Highway, they tried to deal with our problems. Our major problems were our residents were getting in danger of getting killed on the highway. A lot of them were killed on the highway because of those stupid intersections that they removed on the highway. The other concern, of course, was kids walking along the highway, all that kind of stuff. But also, then it was noise. Okay, and so we attained concessions as a group, as a community, and went through all the public meetings and and generally got public support for everything that we did. And we won some major battles and we lost some. But the reality is we ended up with what we ended up in the process. Doesn't mean rules can't change and things can't be done later on. However, the thinking about speed has changed around the world. Okay, speed limits versus highway speed. Okay, highway speed is what people do. That's average, through a corridor, whatever the case is. Posted speed is, for lack of a better term, the suggested speed limit, the enforceable speed limit, whatever it is. But they're trying ways to improve it by maybe trying to increase. I sort of understand the idea, but I've traveled a little bit and I see a lot of countries are changing the way they're thinking about that. They're actually forcing people to slow down. Even on major highways, they'll force people to slow down somehow. They'll figure a way to do it, and they're trying to do it.
Yeah, we're trying the same. Average speed over distance.
Yeah, yeah. And so, I don't know. I think that the highway, we went through 8 years of that with the highways, and we did pretty darn good as far as I was concerned, and Michael was part of it, and he saw it as well. Yeah, there's some people that are still annoyed about the speed limit change and stuff like that, but we don't control the highway.
Well, I mean, the reality is that the province has built a freeway through the heart of our community
Well, that's
without
exactly right.
giving it the normal freeway buffers. You go anywhere else, there's wide buffers between the traffic lanes and the first house. And in our case, we have houses within 5 meters of a freeway.
But we opened negotiations with the Ministry of Transportation by insisting on having a tunnel through the village.
Yeah, I remember you said.
And we designed it. We actually had drawings and engineers, local engineers, draw it and produce a set of blueprints for it. And it just blew them away. And that's how we started negotiating. Okay. Now we didn't get that. But that was our opening volley.
That may yet, because the highway, the day is visible when the highway is going to run out of capacity already. So there's more highway work coming, and how it's going to happen through Lions Bay and where the cliff is close to the railway line, the CN railway line. Will they move their railway line? No. Or the sea. So sometimes it's going to have to be stacked, it's going to have to be tunneled, it's going to have to be who knows what the heck. In 50 years' time, when they build the fourth crossing to the Sunshine Coast over the gravel moraine to Anvil Island and across to the mainland again, which is coming, traffic through Lions Bay will be 10 times what it is today. So, yeah, didn't win at that time, but tunnels, yeah, it's going to have to be a tunnel. And then they can sell all the land on top of the tunnel, like they did on the Cassio connector, to pay for it.
We're building more and more roads over ocean than they ever used to.
Yeah, well, a floating bridge.
Communities like this.
So Sweden, there's plenty of floating bridges.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, thanks for that, and thanks, Peter. That's all by the by, and your objections noted, and it's not the end of the thing. What we're trying to do is first improve safety, and people are driving 90 to 100 through the village. The speed study shows it. That's too fast, judging by the accident rates. So we're trying what we can to get slowed down until we get average speed over distance, if we ever do.
So, at the end of the day, someone put something for us. The engineers of the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure put forward a suggestion. They want to do this speed averaging thing and all that kind of stuff, and they've got rules and they've got stuff behind them and they've got studies and they've got all this kind of stuff. And the reality is, we are not that kind of expert on that kind of stuff. We know what we hear and what we see.
Yeah, precisely.
So our first thing is, well, these guys should know what they're doing. Now, if we see they don't know what they're doing and it doesn't go that way, then we got then it's all then we got to start over again. And that's probably quite likely, like Carl says.
Well, I will say that some of their proposed methods to slow traffic down through Lions Bay, that's vegetative median, white paint, increased shy distance, that kind of stuff, didn't work. In fact, traffic seems to have slowed, according to the fire department,
What was the
when
term?
they put in the concrete barrier.
Context-sensitive design?
Yeah, context-sensitive design. The lampposts are supposed to make you think you're in a village.
No, the trees and the village signs were supposed to make
It's
people
a
slow
freeway.
down. Yeah, it's a freeway.
It's a badly
Yeah.
designed freeway.
Yeah.
And people are driving freeway speeds. I think we'll probably beat that one to death, but you'll have your work cut out for you on that one. Not you two, and you two. Okay, so is there a motion on the table to receive correspondence? Yes, there is. There's not?
There was.
There was, yes. Okay, so can I call the question? All in favour? Opposed and carried. Okay. If I remember agendas correctly, which would be a first, assuming there's no new business, there was matters arising, but there's no new business, right?
So where are you?
12.
12 on the agenda.
Yeah, no.
There's time for public questions and comments, and seeing as the only two members of the public here are future members of council, we'd be very happy to hear if you have anything to say.
A few comments.
Please.
Set through that.
Please.
Say something. Maybe in reverse order. Noticed when you were talking earlier about the cannabis permits in the news tonight, and I think I heard this correctly. It sounds like it's up to each municipality to decide whether they will allow cannabis to be smoked in public, as opposed to only in residence. And I believe, the way I heard the news, each jurisdiction gets to decide that, not provincial. So maybe we want to check if that is true and then decide, do we want to vote on it one way or the other. I'm not sure if you say nothing, what the default position is. Didn't quite catch that. I just caught it on the news.
Yeah, Peter, do you have any?
Sorry, where it's allowed to be smoked?
Whether it's allowed to be smoked in public within that municipal jurisdiction. Whether it's outside of private residence areas.
Mm.
So, personal property.
Right.
And that's the way it sounded like on the news. But anyway, we should look into it.
Well, the current prohibition that such as it is, that we put in place is the sale of cannabis.
Sale of it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean you can't sit outside the store with a joint and smoke everywhere you like,
Well, I think-
as long as you're not someone's residence.
We have
Yeah.
some no smoking areas, like in parks.
Chairs in
And-
parks, 30
yeah.
meters from doors,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff probably would comply to the same as cigarettes. But it sounded like over and above where you're not allowed to smoke a cigarette within 30 feet, 10 meters from a door. Over and above that, it sounded like a jurisdiction can say, we do not allow smoking cannabis in our public places.
Mm.
Or outside of private residences, I think is the way it was described.
Okay, that's something.
Don't have
Yeah,
it completely clear, just call it on the news, which you
I don't. Is smoking tobacco
smoking
controlled by bylaw or just by convention in Lions Bay in public places?
We have some bylaw mentions with respect to parks, but apart from that, I think it would simply be pursuant to WorkSafe BC regulations.
Because there's no federal prohibition on smoking
And
tobacco.
WorkSafe BC regulation is basically defined by workplaces. Yeah, it's within so many feet of workplace.
So somebody can walk down the street right now smoking a cigarette.
Yes.
Fire bylaws notwithstanding, public nuisance, we don't even have one.
Yeah, so I'm just not sure whether, well, it's going to be up to council to determine, I guess, if council has, I'll have to look into whether council has the legal authority to regulate smoking of cannabis in public where smoking of tobacco would otherwise be legal. Like, can you distinguish between smoking a cigarette and smoking a joint?
On Richmond at the airport, you can smoke cannabis wherever you can smoke cigarettes.
But is that just Richmond, or?
That's Richmond, so I'm not.
That would seem to me to be the intent of the federal legislation.
I just don't know how one could.
You can't discriminate against one smoking leaf and
Yeah.
another.
Well, we'll just
Although
have
one's
to.
intoxicating and one's.
Sounded like on the news.
We'll have to
No,
look
it's
into
a
it.
good heads up. Yeah, we got to. Yeah.
And maybe link more to alcohol. it's prohibited where you can't drink.
Yeah, that's
It's
true.
really more.
Right.
I mean, my understanding from the metro, around the metro discussion has always been that it's sort of to be regulated like alcohol. Meaning you can't drink it in public, you can't give it to minors, you know, all that stuff. It's all completely, who knows. I mean, I would suggest that the ethos of Lions Bay is that people would not want to be smoked in public anywhere. They would, if you want to do it in the privacy of your own home, go ahead, as long as it doesn't stink up the neighborhood. I don't know, but that's for you guys to determine.
2.5 hours is legal.
Too late for tomorrow.
What else you got?
On the Magnesia Creek thing, did I hear correctly that the municipality or the village actually did that work to remove the grate and stuff? We didn't get the contractor to do it. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, no, we did it because it was going to cost $30,000 to have somebody else do it.
Okay. In the infrastructure committee, there was some talk about whether the contractor that got it wrong in the first place should go back and fix it, but I just want to understand what we meant with.
Well, that would have to be. I think that's a discussion that is parked at the moment, and an issue that would have to be revisited if and when council installs the original design.
Yeah, recall that the issue there was around grant rules. That if we removed it, we'd have to give the grant back, or 2/3 of the grant.
Yeah.
So this is only a temporary repair.
So it's not removed there.
It's been removed for repair. Now, who ends up paying for that? That's going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're
it's-
also in an open meeting, and that's perhaps a legal issue that on which.
Yeah. We can't debate legal approaches because then they'll know what we're planning on doing.
And then I've got a few comments about the other item that came from the conflict of interest. Mrs. Conlon seemed to ask 2 questions. They may be somewhat rhetorical, I'm not sure. The one is directed clearly at Mayor-elect McLaughlin. I'm sure no one wants to speak to him. The second one was kind of directed at everyone else, and I think that's directed at new councillors as well. I don't know what she's referring to, I haven't read that, but I guess the question is, are we going to answer her question? Because I think when the way she read it, she's expecting some sort of response.
Yeah, I would suggest that the next council resolve something.
Okay.
Well-
it may even be covered by your oath of office.
Yeah, I mean, when you swear your oath of office or affirmation, as the case may be, you're basically upholding or pledging to uphold the Community Charter and Local Government Act and all of your obligations as an elected official. So I took her first question to be somewhat rhetorical. And the second was pretty much along the same lines, I thought. And I would think that when council pledges their allegiance or makes their oaths and affirmations, that those questions will be answered. So I'm not sure what kind of response would be otherwise appropriate or required.
Just to put my question some other way is when the mayor referred to it's going to be discussed later in the agenda. What happened later in the agenda is nothing what Mrs. Conlon has.
What she was asking for.
Doesn't
Does
matter.
that?
So
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
going to deal with it. So are we going to respond to it?
Fair
I don't
Well,
get that.
except that, actually, as a matter of fact, the statement that was read into the minutes on behalf of Councillor McLaughlin
Yes, that true. That
actually encompasses a pledge to make sure it doesn't happen again. So I think that that may very well cover what the intent of what she was looking for. But perhaps I can send her an email asking, bringing that to her attention and asking her if that more or less covers off what she's looking for. And if not, then I guess I'll find out otherwise.
If not, council can write to her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good points. Thanks.
I was just wondering, if I could, regarding this, that I think Lidstone and Company has given a good bit of advice on it, and I think maybe she should be privy to that information, because I think it answers your questions, that it's the appearance of a conflict of interest. It wasn't an actual conflict of interest because there's no pecuniary benefit to.
I believe that was closed advice though, right?
Was it?
I'm asking.
Actually, no, that was actually public information.
Okay,
that was,
fine.
that was made public. So, yeah.
Iran has chosen to declare a conflict just for an abundance of caution. But we can leave it at that, even if legal counsel has said there was no conflict. Yeah, I mean, I think Carol, the resident, Mrs. Conlon, deserves an answer.
Well, she also mentioned that Ron and I should have known better, but we dealt with this thing years ago.
6 years ago, yeah.
And it was dealt with the same outcome, pretty much, that Wisdom has been saying now. So when
it's a storm in a teacup. We know that, but it's a valid point.
But to her point, though, we're not rising up against it and stuff. I'm not going to say anything because I felt it was dealt with before. So
yeah, fair enough.
What do you say?
I don't want to go there. I think that we all understand that Ron would not, or you would not do that.
Mm-hmm.
I know that completely. And so I understand where she's coming from, based on last election and all that kind of stuff. I think that, I don't think there's any, I don't think there's anything there. I think she raises a good point. End of story. That's it. And Ron dealt with it, he knew, he dealt with it, and read a statement into, that's fine.
Well, it's a good heads up for all
It
of
is,
us.
that's right, it's a very good heads up.
Come on, Norm's suffering now. It's only 9 hours jet lag. What are you worried about?
I'm trying to stay awake here, sorry.
Yeah, you're doing fine. Okay, thanks. That's good.
I wasn't, sorry, I wasn't quite finished.
No, go ahead.
I don't necessarily want to keep going on.
You're way over your 2 minutes, but we're giving you a waiver on that.
Thank you.
Okay.
So just some clarity on this. When I raised that issue, I was thinking of something that happened many years ago. When Ron responded, he was talking of something far more recent. I went and trolled through hours of meetings to find out what we're talking about. Ron recused himself July 3rd this year in a council meeting. We weren't talking about something about 4 years ago. In my search to find this, what he was talking about, I also discovered that in July 19th, in a council meeting, Ron is again talking about Millennium Architecture, and I says to him, I thought you were dealing with that, he says, you want me to reach out to Millennium? And I says yes. So I think we need to be careful here. And it also got me thinking further. It starts off with a committee, with the resident, John Meikle-John, on this committee, not being paid, volunteering his service, and somewhere along the way, he's now getting paid, and Councillor McLaughlin is motivating for these 2 contracts that he subsequently gets. Not a lot of money. I'm not alluding that people are getting backhanded deals, but I think I'm taking away from this is we've got to be a lot more careful. Because I think if you go through this, you could build a history of this. It's just like ongoing conflict, perceived conflict is a conflict. That's what it says.
Yeah, I mean, even an apprehension of bias is excessive.
I'm thinking one of the first things I want to do is, and I don't know how, look at how we establish these committees, what sort of statements are made, and maybe there's some sort of oath of committee, for lack of a better term, that you take that says, yes, I'm joining this committee, I don't intend to get paid for it, I tend to do it freely, or so there's clear clarity about where you stand, and we don't get into these kind of predicaments.
Yeah. I have actually thought something similar, that by joining a committee, you so exclude yourself from any future consideration for remuneration.
Yeah, and that's clearly not what happened in this.
No, but there's no policy against it, and the legal opinion alluded to establishes that Councillor McLaughlin has absolutely no pecuniary interest in the fate of Millennium Architecture. Whether they do really well or really poorly, it doesn't change his pecuniary interest in them whatsoever. I mean, that's legal opinion. But it doesn't look good. And it's so easy not to do. So let's fix it. Yeah, good point.
It really says proceed with caution. That's all it says, and it's a good point.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, let's just not go down. Let's not open that door in future.
Yeah.
So there's not these apprehensions of personal bias. Yeah, valid point.
Got it?
What else you got,
No, I'm good, thanks.
Jamie? Good. Okay, thank you. I believe we have to close the meeting for some housekeeping items now. So I'll ask for motion to close and a second. All in favour, opposed and carried. Do we need a short recess? Just to clarify that resolution, it's to close as stated in the agenda on the grounds of 91E and J. Okay. Okay, we're returning from closed session at 9:52 according to that clock, but I think that clock 9:53 in fact. With two items to report out. The first is that Council approved the award of a real estate listing agreement for 35 Kelvin Grove Way to Kim Taylor of Royal LePage Sussex Realty in the form attached to her proposal, which will form the contract with her, and that the CEO be authorised to execute the contract on behalf of the municipality.
The list price.
And at a list price of $980,000. And that's that reporting out. And the second is that in a piece of scintillating housekeeping, Council rescinded a resolution that the Mayor had been instructed to write a letter to the Government of Canada and the Province of BC relating to grant funding that became moot when how did it become moot?
The circumstances were not as originally.
Of the tender, where the circumstances of the tender had changed, and hence of the grant award. Okay, so those are the two. I know that sounds confusing, but it's not that interesting. Can I say that?
Just did.
Okay, so those are the two items to report out, and with that I'll ask for a motion to adjourn the regular meeting. Thanks, it's been moved and seconded. All in favour, opposed and carried.